My main question is kind of like for Reed, because Reed is like a huge influence in my life, but this goes out to everybody here. Um, my career, I mostly want to focus on research on tornadoes specifically, like tornado dynamics, how they work, just to really understand the nitty gritty, right? How would you start from like college? Like you just you get out of high school, you're a senior, and go over to OU, whatever. You're like, hey, can I get a degree? And they're like, okay, and then you get a degree, and then there's a huge severe weather event, and you're like, I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna drive straight into it, and I'm gonna put a little weather app on my phone, and I'm gonna see the humidity in it, and it's like you need a bit more than that, I would say. So I would like to know where to start, like if I could build a probe or something or whatnot.
Yeah, and I think they're even starting even younger, building the prototype probes and the dominators, the interceptors, science missions. You can test them on leaf blowers, and that's kind of when the creative process really starts. And I've seen a lot of new designs as well for dominators that have even inspired the design of Dominator 5. But once you get to the university that you choose, and I would pick one that does a lot of severe weather research. Texas Tech is a really good one right now. Chris Weiss, who I went to grad school with and played on the OU hockey team there, is a really field-focused guy, and they're doing all kinds of stuff with mobile radars and stick net probes. University of Oklahoma has a lot of field projects. It's a little bit more discouraged to storm chase on your own time there now, but it doesn't mean you can't do it. Still, if you do it safely, and you can develop your own science missions. But the key is once you get to those universities, start making connections, start talking to professors, find mentors that are involved in field science. For me, I was obsessed with Dr. Howie Bluestein at the University of Oklahoma, and he became a mentor of mine. I see him out in the field all the time, and he's my favorite professor all the way through OU. I wish I could have been involved in more of his field projects, certainly driving the radar. But the key is just to make those connections, show your passion, get in there and start talking to professors and get involved in those field projects, and you can learn a lot from them with instrumentation, even how to build your own instruments. Will Clay 25 is making all of our miniaturized sensors now, so it's really good to connect to engineers like that as well, because they really determine the success of your science mission. The sensors that you deploy, the data you collect, everything comes down to the accuracy of the sensors and your idea as well. For us, for tornadoes, it's all about the ground up data. So we figured out that just throwing the sensors out the window is the best way to get the ground up data inside of a tornado from suction vortex and up. And we've seen the occlusion process a lot and had a lot of questions about the tornado genesis process that we want to figure out eventually. But I do think that social media is going to be a great tool to do your own research as well and crowdfund research. But I do think that initially being affiliated with those university field projects is a great way to get your feet wet, learn how to storm chase, do it safely, and then it could lead to more of your own projects. If you have a good idea, you can start writing grants as well and do kind of a hybrid approach. Social media, you can get sponsors behind research even now, just because science is so important, And I think if you have a mission when you're storm chasing that's science involved, then it's easy for people to get behind that.
I love it.
All right.
Awesome.
Thank you for everyone, by the way. For everything you do, you're awesome. Y'all are great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Never stop chasing.
Never stop chasing.
Learning to.
All right, we've got 3.5 minutes. I think we can do this. Short answers. Let's go.
Hi, my name is Max. Since social media is becoming such a big thing, what is some advice that you could give to the younger audience that could help them build their brand on social media in a field that is quickly becoming oversaturated? This could be a good question for Max, could be a good question for Matthew, just because y'all are kind of becoming bigger in this.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's gotten a lot more saturated over the last couple of years. I mean, I've noticed that, it was basically on YouTube specifically. If we're just talking about YouTube, it was mostly for nationwide weather, just me and Ryan. And now we have a lot of other people that are starting to make their own channels. And I think it's a great thing. Like, I think in general, in the weather space, competition is very important, because it drives everybody significantly to do better. I mean, we've been, upgrading a bunch of stuff on our end and making our streams even better. So we are competing nonstop. But I think for anybody out there that wants to make a channel, I think what you need to do is just find a niche. I know somebody just came up here talking about how they want to do designing. I think designing is one of the places in the weather space that is very undersaturated. I've seen so many weather graphics that do not look very good. I think there's a lot of potential there. So I would find your niche. I think you have to have a niche in this space. You need to be unique, and you have to also have very good communication.
I love it. Thank you, Max. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Hi. How are you? Want to take the mic?
Sure, I can take the mic.
Awesome.
Hey, Jen, hold on one sec. I do want to add something to that, but it's more of a question to Carissa.
Yeah.
I work with Carissa, and she's my boss. So one thing we've noticed in social media, right, in the request from content from news sources in social media. Do you want to talk about that and maybe why, the news media is hurting right now and why some of that happens? Do you have the opportunity to do that?
Well, yeah. And I think it's no secret, and Dave can kind of help me out here with this too, that traditional broadcast media, and you mentioned local news, Jen, it's gone in a different direction. And as the market continues to saturate, as people can get everything on their phone, they can get everything on YouTube, and they can be in the storm with you. Why wouldn't they want to do that? And it's difficult too, because we serve a larger brand, and we have to consider the larger brand that we work for. Whereas I love when Max said, find your niche, because that's your brand and you can serve your brand the best possible way and be unique, because everybody out there wants to be the next Reed Timmer, the next Max Velocity. We don't need that. We need the next you. We need that brand. And, so to build on what Max was saying, you have to find what makes you you. And that's what I tell the meteorologists that I work with every day. It's like, I don't want to, a lot of consultants in TV are going to try and fit you in a box. Everybody's going to try and fit you in a box and make you do what they think you need to. And that's sometimes difficult when you have to serve a larger brand. But I want the best version of you. I want you to be uniquely you, because then, especially, we are lucky to work for a national platform. Then I can connect with people in Alabama. I can connect with people in Washington. I can connect with people all over the country with different media outlets. And by being that best version of you, you can go out there and connect with people as well. But that's where the professionalism, the communication, that side of things has to come in as well. Because when it's a larger organization trying to find those social media videos and trying to go forth and get that content for us to put on air, we don't have a lot of resources monetarily to always do that. We have to find ways to work with professionalism, with people who are doing the best version of themselves, but also doing the right thing. How do I say that, Dave?
I think the thing I'll say, just adding on real quick, is earn their trust.
Yeah.
If social media, earn their trust. I think that's underrated. I think that's we kind of forget that sometimes, and I think it's important to have that rapport with the people who are watching you or following you. I think that's really important. Is just to make sure that the people who are listening to you know that you know what the heck you're talking about.
I love it. Awesome. All right, so we are well over time, but we're going to do this really quickly. 30-second answers. Go for it.
Alrighty, that's fine.
Yeah.
Alrighty. This is for all of you guys. Do you believe the growing push for formal credentials and tech integration is helping or hurting the raw passion that originally drove storm chasing and severe weather research? And how do we keep that passion?
Ooh. That's good.
Let's face it, the founder of this, Tim Samaras, had no meteorological education at all. He was an inventor, he was a Renaissance man, and he was a self-taught guy. So I think credentials can be overblown. They're very important for some things, but don't let that stop you. The passion is really where it comes from.
I love it. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, the last and final question. Here we go.
Hello, my name is Zoe, and I've asked this question to a few people already, but out of all the meteorologist schools, which one would you prefer most?
Whoa! Actually,
I'm biased.
okay, let's go down the line really quick and you just name it. Name what school you went to. Go.
University of Wisconsin at Madison.
Woo!
I'm biased because I went here, but Embry-Riddle and Daytona Beach.
Woo!
University of Oklahoma, but there's lots of other universities out there.
Metro State University, right here in Denver.
University of Oklahoma.
Nice. Woo!
I have two. I went to the College of DuPage and also Metro State. Here.
Woo!
The Ohio State University.
Settle down, settle down.
Now, the best meteorology school for you is going to be the school that best fits your interests in the field.
Woo! Terrifying answer.
It may not be any of these. It may not be any of these that were just named. Some schools have stronger aspects, like Florida State for tropical, OU, or even Penn State for severe. Since I went to one of those schools, I'll just say this: Boomer! Boomer!
See, I didn't go to a meteorology school. I went to Harvard and I badgered them to let me take as many atmospheric sciences classes as I could. I went to MIT 3 days a week. I got to learn from Carrie Emanuel. And so it's not even necessarily about the school you go to. It's about the program you design for yourself and the professors you get to learn from.
Woo! That's good. That's really good.
Yeah, so I went the military route. So I was joining the military, and they put me through school, right? So I started at a junior college, and then I went to the atmospheric science that the military has, and then I finally, as a 40-something-year-old, finished my degree at Embry-Riddle.
Woo! Woo!
Great closing question.
That's, even your older folks, if you're in your 30s, don't give up. I mean, it took me forever. So.
Yes. Woo! Thank you so much. All right, so I just want to thank everyone, all the young ones that came up here, and our panelists who have been up here for over an hour. You're incredible. You're brilliant. You're some of my closest friends, and you've shared your wisdom with everyone here in this room. So please give them all a big round of applause. Woo! All right. And you guys can.
Now, thank you for the stage.
Yeah. Woo! Oh my God. Oh yeah, we're done. Oh, you get me going.
Hey guys, we have a little technical here. We're gonna go on a 5-minute break. Go take a bathroom break. Go take a bathroom break. Come back in 5 minutes. We're gonna get this fixed.
brought in several different people representing several different careers. Some are directly meteorology, some are not. Related to meteorology, but not necessarily meteorology, just so you guys could hear from a variety of people. If you guys want to just line up, like, along the front here. I'm just going to pass the microphone down, and you guys can each introduce yourselves, maybe talk a little bit about your education and what you do for your career. All right. So we're going to start with Ryan.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ryan Pitt. I'm from the Wichita, Kansas area. I'm not a meteorologist. Wanted to give you guys a different perspective that uses weather every day. I'm in aviation. I'm a pilot. So went to Southern Illinois University. I think that's all for me.
Hey, I'm Eddie Aldrine. I'm Director of Emergency Management for Nemaha County, Kansas. About an hour north of Topeka, if you guys know where that's at. Just like Ryan, I'm not a meteorologist either, but my background, master's degree in emergency management and counterterrorism type law enforcement stuff. So,
David Bodine. I'm a professor at the University of Oklahoma. I did meteorology for both my bachelor's through PhD.
I'm Kevin Scharfenberg. I'm a meteorologist. I went to the University of Oklahoma as well for a bachelor's and master's degree, and I've had a variety of roles in the National Weather Service since then.
We're starting a trend. We're about to. I'm Gerard DeBailey. I'm a meteorologist in the broadcast sector. I'm a
chasing this data about what happens after the storm. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. So this is a photo of me in 2017 after Hurricane Harvey. And if you can see in the background, there are diagrams of federal funding. And so this is the thing that I have been focused on for the last 8 years, since I personally lived through Hurricane Harvey. And anyone, we have any Texans in the room? Yeah. Anyone lived through Hurricane Harvey? Yeah? Yeah. So just an absolutely enormous storm. And
Carlos, hurry up. He's going to take our picture.
my job was essentially to fight with the
and just being here with all the people around, it's just an incredible vibe here, guys.
You know, I'm curious, Dave, who have you seen that maybe you were excited to see and interact with? Maybe somebody you haven't seen in a long time, and all of a sudden you saw him and you're like, wow, it's so great to see it. Who have you been seeing there?
So, our very own Jeff Porter. I've actually never met him in person. Usually he's busy out there, you know, in the field doing his thing. But he is here. Got to actually meet him in person and be, you know, hey, I'm Dave Holder, you know, we've talked before. But you might know who I am. We're expecting to see Tim Marshall. We're really excited to see him in person. I haven't seen him in 12 years or so. as actually the last time I was at one of these. It used to be known as the Storm Chaser Conference, and that was, gosh, 12 years ago. That was back in 2014. Eric Fox, you've seen him on air as well. Got to hang out with him, who I've not really been able to hang out with in a long time. We go back, way back. And he's the one, of course, who now runs this new version of it, the Storm Chaser Summit. So he's been kind of running around here. Just incredible to see these names. On Dave Garfield. I've seen Justin Drake. Just a lot of names here who a lot of people have seen in videos and on social media, on live television for decades really now. So really cool to see them and just catch up with them and kind of reflect about days of old in a way.
You know, we're seeing video here, Dave. It looks like it's a lot of fun, a lot of stuff that's set up. So I'm kind of curious your thoughts on why this is so important. Why is this event so important for you to be out there, but also to interact with people who might be interested in weather?
So a couple things going on here. Obviously, there's a big storm chasing component of all of this. But there are some really brilliant minds in the field as well. We had the Storm Prediction Center lead forecaster, Roger Edwards here, not that long ago. He was part of that panel as well. And John Davies. These guys are just incredible in some of the work they've done advancing the study of meteorology, advancing the field of meteorology, which, by the way, meteorology is still very new science, and there's still so much that we're learning. But I'm also seeing a lot of younger folks here. A lot of younger folks get drawn into the field, through movies like Twister, or the second Twisters, or for seeing some of the videos that are put out. But they now get to come in here, see the chaser, but also get to kind of get a feel for the science at the same time. And it's really that collaboration of the science and the weather enthusiasm that comes together that is really important. And and just being able to pass on that knowledge that all of us have from our years of doing what we do, but whether being out in the field or being on air, we get to share that knowledge, impart that knowledge to the younger generation. And some of the kids that were coming on up, they were blew away by how smart and how inquisitive their questions were. And it really made me proud to see that younger generation so interested in the field of meteorology, and kind of made me feel like we're in good hands going forward here.
You know, Dave, we've got just a minute left. I'm curious, what are you looking forward to for the rest of your time there? What's happening later on today, maybe, that you want to see?
So a couple things. There's actually a Storm Chaser Hall of Fame. This will be the second year of it here, so they're going to announce the recipients of that. I know a few people personally who have been inducted and may be inducted again here. So the award show kind of deal, that would be really cool to see. First, we had a debris ball. That was pretty cool. That was a bit of a dancing kind of theme. And it sounds like there might be karaoke at some point here as well. So might be taking part of that. We'll see how that shakes out.
Well, my next question as we wrap this up, what is your go-to karaoke song? What do you think you're going to be singing?
You know what? I do a lot of Billy Joel songs.
Okay, Billy Joel, okay.
I think my go-to songs would be Stormfront.
Okay.
From the album Stormfront.
Yeah, that lines up perfectly with the summit. Dave Holder, thank you so much for joining us as we are continuing to track the National Storm Chasers Summit out of Westminster, Colorado.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
FEMA, 25% your community. So it covers things like debris removal, rebuilding public buildings, rebuilding public utilities. All of that can be funded by FEMA. Last program, CDP GDR. A surprise for anyone who can say that really quickly. But that program is for long-term housing recovery, housing and community recovery. So you can do things like if your affordable housing stock was really badly damaged in a storm, you can rebuild it with HUD dollars. So there's a lot of different kinds of money available. And it's a lot of money. So those are really big numbers. About $19 billion out the door since 2003 to individual households, $106 billion to communities, state and local government, and $55 billion, again, to state and local government for long-term housing recovery. $3,100, that's about how much the average household has gotten when you qualify for FEMA assistance since 2003. So FEMA assistance, that program that a lot of us think about when we think about, like, what does FEMA do? When they're cutting checks to individual households, it's not a very big check. Much more of the money is going to what is the community as a whole doing? I also want to give you a sense of the timeline for recovery, because it can take so long. As I think about the storm chasing community, a lot of the energy is in this first immediate bucket. So this is where search and rescue is happening, mutual aid. One really important thing that's happening is damage data collection, because that informs everything else that's happening in the future in terms of how much money a place is going to get. Then in that first year, you're getting a federal disaster declaration. You're starting debris cleanup. Maybe your FEMA programs are starting. Temporary housing, people are having to find temporary housing. FEMA actually covers some of those costs. Then when you get 1 to 2 years out, you're starting to rebuild housing. You're planning for long-term rebuilding. And then critically, Congress might give you more money. So when we talk about that HUD CDB GDR program, that $55 billion, that comes through special appropriations from Congress for specific places. So if you get that money, it can be just transformational for a community. And that's really when we start to see the 3 to 20-year timeline. We think about places like Louisiana after Hurricane Katrina. There's still recovery going on from Hurricane Katrina in Louisiana. So those kinds of long-term projects, they can take years and decades. And one of the things I want to say about this money is that we tend to just rebuild what was there before. We don't really think proactively about what could be more resilient, how could we make people safer, how could we avoid the costs of entire communities, entire houses being obliterated. So thinking about that lens of how could we become safer for the future is often missing from this federal money. Right, that's going to be, we can go in more detail on that. But then, so quickly, this is what the Disaster Dollar Database can tell you about how much money a place got after a disaster by different kinds of programs. So, back in 2017, this was very difficult for me to figure out. Now I can look it up in about 3 minutes. And what I can tell about Hurricane Harvey now is that it's about $4,400 that individuals got from FEMA's Individual and Households program. And that CDBG-DR program just gave Texas so much money, more than $5 billion. And so that was really a historic way for the place where I live to start to rebuild in a more resilient way. All right, this is a workshop. So that you've got the 101. I want to call up my colleague, Deborah Go. She and I maintain the database, and we're going to do kind of a live lookup of disasters. So I've been asking people since I've been here, what's your favorite disaster? What do you want to know about? And so we're going to talk about different disasters that you all might know about. I'm going to encourage you to just use the QR code and send us a little message of what disaster you want us to look up. And then we're going to try and do this live. Also, if you want to just shout out a disaster, we will also take those. Greensburg. Okay. Anyone else? Helene. Okay. Moore. Joplin. Gerald. Western Kentucky. Okay. We have some of these queued up. All right. So all of this is to say that our big question is what happens after the chase. Okay? And I think this is where the unexploited sort of story possibilities lie. And there's so many different ways. There's a limited number of ways that you can architect a tornado chase. There are infinite ways that you can architect this kind of story. And I think that you can look into all of these, the ways that communities spend money, individuals, states, all these things. What are they rebuilding? How are they rebuilding? Who controls the money? All that stuff is super, super interesting. So these are the kinds of questions that we want to answer with the database and that I think are really important for anyone thinking about that long time that happens after the chase. All right, so we queued these up based on talking to a bunch of people in the last day, and we're gonna run through them really quickly. Okay, Joplin. Anyone want to say what was really? Anyone know the story of Joplin, 2011? Crazy. Okay. Anyone like what buildings were destroyed? Hospital and the high school. Yeah. Okay, so this is how much money Joplin got after the big tornado in 2011. So kind of the inverse of Hurricane Harvey, much more public assistance than CDBG-DR. But we wanted to kind of see, okay, well, what kind of stuff can you do with that money? And if you want to research this on your own, one of the things I really encourage you to do is to just Google Joplin CDBG-DR, because the federal government requires any jurisdiction that received federal disaster recovery money from HUD to publish a website. So there's a trove of data. It's not always easily presented. When we built the disaster dollar database, we did it basically with 2 research assistants spending 6 months reading PDFs. But we did it. And so it's not necessarily consistently presented, but they have data in these long reports, these long PDFs, and you can figure out, like, what did they build? So as we were looking into, like, okay, what did they build with this money in Joplin? So one of the things they did was rebuild the high school. And if you look at if you go to Joplin High School, their website right now, there's this like amazing drone video of their their campus. It's like nicer than most college campuses. And that was rebuilt with CDBG-DR money. The other thing they rebuilt
it's a way to connect all of what you were saying about being out in the field, but finding the beauty in it and finding the humanity in it, and then being able to use yourself as
found that all in their CDBG-DR report. Okay, Moore. Someone said Moore earlier. What's the story of Moore? Yeah, high wind speeds repeatedly. Hit 2 elementary schools. Yeah. Okay, so this is the story of 2013 and Moore. And what jumps out at you here? It's a lot of CDBG-DR money. $99 million, about $55 million in public assistance. And so what do they do with that money? Again, you just Google Moore, Oklahoma, CDBG-DR, and this pops up. So you too can read this PDF. And a couple things they rebuilt. So one, they rebuilt a playground and like rebuilding public spaces, turning things into green space so that things often that are in the floodway, this is a big deal in hurricanes and floods, but you can take stuff out of the floodway and turn it into detention and green space. That's something you can do with CDBG-DR. And then remember how I said in Houston we rebuilt affordable housing? So they did the same thing in Moore. Moore was in what year? Well, right. Which one? 2013. So we're talking about 2013 and Moore. The Curve Apartments went online in like the last year. Like the pool was finished 8 months ago. So in 2025. And like a lot of CDBG-DR housing complexes, this is mixed income. So there's stacking different kinds of funding, including CDBG-DR, including market funding, tax credits, that sort of thing, so that you increase your housing stock after a major disaster. Rolling Fork. Was anyone in this room there? No one? Anyone know the story of that tornado? Yeah, so the rotation went right up to the town and dropped on the town. Overnight, right? Yeah, like huge, huge tornado. What was the EF rating? EF4? Should have been a 5. That's what Edgar told me. Okay, so Rolling Fork was relatively recent. So remember how I said it takes so long? I mean, in the Moore example, like finding that that a 2013 tornado had like until 2025 to finish the construction of that apartment complex. It just takes so long. So what's interesting about Rolling Fork to me is they've gotten $45 million in CDBG-DR, but we don't really know what that money has been spent on yet because they just got their action plan approved. Like they just have gotten the ability to start spending that money. So the timeline in Rolling Fork was the tornado happened in, I believe it was May of 23, another M month. So March of 23. And then Congress appropriated CDBG-DR money in December of 24. So more than a year and a half later. Then the state of Mississippi has to like write a whole plan and a budget, and they have to consult with the community, and they have to send it to HUD, and HUD has to approve it, and then they do a grant agreement. And so their plan for this money that they got in December of 24 was only approved in August of 2025. And so December 7th, 2025, so just about 2 months ago, was when they were able to start opening up their housing programs for applications. And so when you go into one of these PDF documents, one of the things you get is a budget. Okay, so what is their plan for how they're going to spend this money? And what's interesting to me about, if I'm thinking about stories that I want to tell about Rolling Fork or what's happening, I want to look at, okay, they're spending money on administration and planning. That's kind of boring, but affordable rental housing. So that means they're going to issue multifamily contracts to build affordable rental housing. Well, how many units are they going to get? What's the mix, affordable and non-affordable? How affordable is it? They're going to have a big program, 22% of the budget, for owner-occupied housing. So that means that people who weren't able to rebuild with just FEMA money, with just insurance money, they're going to get some help to be able to harden their homes and repair them. Infrastructure, 28% of the budget, and economic revitalization, 16%. So it gives you some clues about what the community is intending to spend money on. And when you think about accountability, it's like, okay, well, what did they actually spend money on? And there's, I think, going to be some really interesting stories about Rolling Fork as their recovery unfolds, because it was such a dramatic tornado, as you said, like drops onto the community directly. And so how are they going to be able to rebuild? And are they going to be able to rebuild in a way
maps and drawing beautiful thunderstorms, the photography of it, sharing the visuals of it, is a way to connect all of what you were saying about being out in the field, but finding the beauty in it and finding the humanity in it, and then being able to use yourself as a conduit to connect that all to people who are watching. That's a great answer.
Well, we recognize those two people. Those are meteorologists here at WeatherNation, meteorologist Dave Holder, meteorologist Carissa Kloss, who was speaking there, Jesse. They are at the Storm Chaser Summit happening right now in Westminster, Colorado.
Yeah, and you can still catch the live feed right now on our YouTube and our Rumble pages right now. That live stream will be going on through the early.
No CDBG-DR. So not every storm gets CDBG-DR. Not every storm gets FEMA programs either. When I said earlier, one of the big things that happens is damage data collection. That's the first step to understand if you're going to meet the threshold where FEMA says, okay, fine, you've exceeded the capacity of your local and state government to recover from this. So, so not every storm gets either individual assistance, public assistance, or CDBG. It's a real tragedy. Okay, so you can't just Google Greenfield, Iowa CDBG-DR because there is no money for CDBG-DR yet. Who knows what could happen in the future? But you can look up the FEMA incident page, and this starts to
focus on the cold and how it's really going to continue to be on the intense side for the rest of the weekend and into early next week. There's that next plume of Arctic air that comes.
Assistance data. So Deborah crunched these numbers, and we found these two things that have been funded by public assistance, which was, what was it, Deborah? A sewer?
The fire station had to do a new sewer pipe. So that was one of the things. And the storm also took out a lot of transmission lines. So something else they did with FEMA PA money was go in and rebuild the power poles and transmission lines so that the town could have electricity again.
So that we all found in open FEMA. So this is what that money is being spent on. So when we look at that FEMA public assistance line, okay, what have they spent $15 million on? The answer is partly like fixing the Linville Fire Department and the transmission lines. And one of the things that's interesting about FEMA PA is that it is ongoing over time. So when we look at the back end of the database, we can see over time that new projects are coming online or that projects are stalled. So we got a call from a reporter in Northwest Iowa 2 weeks ago saying, we're supposed to have these 2 elementary schools rebuilt. We've taken out $6 million in debt. It's supposed to be refunded by FEMA, but the money has stopped coming. Do you know what's going on? So that's the kind of story that I think is possible to tell with this kind of data. Okay, Deborah, what has come in? What are people curious about?
So lots of storms and tornadoes. A big one. A lot of people are super curious about what happened in, let's see, the Greensburg, Kansas tornado of 2007. Huge tornado. And you can see that it has gotten over $98 million of funding since then. If you look at the breakdown, nearly $10 million in the individual program and over $80 million to rebuild the community.
Yeah, so these numbers are kind of hard to see because we just like literally are doing this in real time and like screenshotting them out of our database. But it's 80 million on the bottom. Is that right?
88.
88. Okay, so $88 million in FEMA public assistance. And if you wanted to know what was happening there, you would go to the Open FEMA data set and figure out and search for this incident number. And you would be able to see things like, okay, new storm drain for the fire department.
Next one that people had a lot of questions about, Hurricane Katrina, one of the most devastating storms to have ever hit the US. And you can see that it's gotten a lot of money, $23 billion since it has happened in 2005. A large part of that comes through HUD funding, but also public assistance funding in clearing debris and rebuilding schools, rebuilding roads. So it's gotten nearly $13 billion just from public assistance from FEMA alone.
And some of those, I spend a lot of time watching like FEMA press conferences and events. And one of the things that's really come up a lot this year is how there are still projects on the books from Hurricane Katrina that are still being closed out on FEMA's books. So this is like a really politically animating issue right now in the discourse about disaster recovery. What else? What's next?
Next up, we have the Hurricane Helene.
Who was that? We had some of the younger chasers were you guys would you guys visit North Carolina? Yesterday, some folks were talking about how they visited North Carolina. Was anyone chasing Helene or in Helene? Yeah? What was that like? Do you want to say? It was rough. Succinct. Good. Anyone else know anything about Hurricane Helene? What was that? What was that hurricane like? Yeah. Yeah, so even a few months later, the way that community was devastated reminded you of Hurricane Katrina. So just really intense devastation. And I think what we see here is what's interesting to me as someone who looks at a lot of these graphs is that their HUD CDB GDR appropriation is pretty big. I would anticipate that their FEMA public assistance line should be bigger. And one of the things that they've complained about a lot is that they aren't getting as much FEMA public assistance money as they are entitled to, that the money has been moving really slowly. And you'll hear that from a lot of different jurisdictions in 2025. There's been something of a shift in how federal disaster recovery policy is working, and we're seeing much slower reimbursements in 2025. All right. Maybe let's do a little Q&A, if people have general questions, and Deborah can continue to look up more storms while we're Qing and Aing. So yeah, Edgar promised me that he would have microphones, but I don't even know if he's here. Does anyone have a roving mic? Tech team? We're working on it. Okay. Anyone have questions generally about what's going on when you follow the money? Yeah, we'll go in the back and then in the front.
Hold on.
Wait. Let's let the people online hear you. Your voice is important.
Hi, I'm Dina Knightley. I'm curious, when they rebuild homes or apartment buildings, how do they make them affordable for people who already live there, that they can afford to still continue to live there?
Yeah, so your question is really about displacement. So if you're getting a lot of money into the community, how do you ensure that the people who've lived there for a long time aren't driven out by the new money and that sort of thing? Huge issue for communities. And it's one of the reasons that HUD requires a pretty extensive community consultation process, because that's what your local government officials who suddenly find themselves managing, sometimes $1 billion, tens of millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars. That's the question that your community has to decide. And so I think if you live in a place that's been hit by disaster, you've probably seen some of this stuff about like community meetings and stuff, which can be kind of boring, but turn out to be really important in how is our community going to address this issue and make sure that we're not displacing people who have been here for a long time. Yeah, and we had a question in the front. Okay, I'll repeat your question because I think if you're online, you can only hear if we're mic'd. So the question is, okay, now that we've amassed all this data and we can look to the past, what do we think about the future and what are we doing with it? So what a great question. And I think I sit in my job is in public policy. So like answering questions like, what should the government be doing? And as we look at the last year, there's something really significant going on in the way that disaster recovery is done in the United States. So after Hurricane Katrina, did anybody watch the 20th anniversary coverage of Hurricane Katrina? Like there was that Netflix special. And there were obviously like a lot of problems in the way that the federal government, state, local government responded to Hurricane Katrina. And in the aftermath of that storm, there was this like kind of wholesale reimagining of disaster recovery. And they did things like, one of the big issues was that there wasn't someone qualified who had a lot of emergency management and leadership experience running FEMA at that time. That was a big problem. And so Congress required that the person managing FEMA have leadership and disaster recovery experience at a senior level. But they also developed this whole framework for disaster recovery that's like locally led, state managed, federally supported. And that's been the template for disaster recovery for the last 20 years. That's really the template that I have described to you in all of this data, that like the local government does what it can. Once its capacity is exceeded, then the federal and state government come in. In 2025, we started to see a real shift in how the federal government is thinking about disaster recovery. And so one of the ways that we use this data is to kind of participate in those debates. Like, what should FEMA do? What should FEMA's role be? Because one of the big criticisms there's a couple of big criticisms of FEMA over the last 2 decades. One of them is it takes too long, there's too much administrative cost. Maybe the federal role is actually too big, and state and local government should be doing more to make sure that their public buildings are insurable, that they're investing in their own resilience. Like, there's all these like policy debates about how we should do disaster recovery. So we use the data to dig into those questions. And I'm going to go back to the slide that I said I was going to skip, but I'm going to do it anyway. There we go. Okay. So one of the things we do is there was a question earlier about what do you do if you love both tornadoes and art? I was like, you can be a data visualization person. So one of the things we've been noticing in 2025 is that disaster declarations are happening in like a way different way than they used to. So in order to activate federal disaster recovery assistance, you have to have a federal declaration of disaster. So the federal government has to say, yes, so-and-so governor, we've read your request, you've documented all the damage, we agree that it has met the threshold for federal help and we're sending FEMA. But the real challenge this year has been that instead of considering those requests on a rolling basis, the federal government is waiting sometimes 2 months to consider that request, which means that you're waiting and waiting and waiting as a local community for the vast resources of the federal government to show up. So even if they eventually show up, if you've had to manage this disaster for 2 months on your own, your recovery is going to be pretty different. So one example that I've really focused on Anybody know the St. Louis tornado? Okay, yeah. Do we have some Missourians? Yeah. What was the St. Louis tornado? It was in May. Wait, what? May 16th of 2025, last year, right? And you said it's really costly, right? Top 10 really, because it hit like downtown St. Louis. So the tornado was on May 16th. They didn't get a disaster declaration. So it's like obvious, I was in St. Louis over the holidays, and like St. Louis still looks like, just it's devastated. Like the number of buildings that are still blown out. Like we were driving around, I was with a friend, and we were driving past the neighborhood that was hit really hard, and like just whole faces off the building, and like you can just see into people's bathrooms. And this was, 8 or 9 months after this tornado. And so usually with that kind of tornado, it's a pretty like open and shut kind of case. Of course, you need federal resources to recover. You would expect a pretty quick turn on that disaster declaration. So May 16th, they didn't get a disaster declaration until June 9th. And so that meant that they were left to manage this enormous tornado, like really historic, completely on their own with local resources before they had the benefit of FEMA coming in. Or to have things like, once you get the federal disaster declaration, it unlocks all kinds of federal programs. I've talked about 3 programs here, but there are just so many different federal programs: the Small Business Administration, transportation, agriculture. Disaster food assistance is something that you can unlock when you get a disaster declaration. Like anyone who's in this community knows that, like, when a tornado hits or a hurricane hits, it's huge strain on local infrastructure. If it hits at the end of the month, people often don't have money for food. There might not be food in the community. So like having that disaster SNAP, that disaster food assistance could be really important, but it doesn't get unlocked until the disaster declaration happens. So one of the things we do with this is like the longest answer ever. What do we do with the data? So we try to help inform what are these big discussions that are happening about what is the role of the federal government? What should we be doing as a country? The initial question that my whole job is to answer is like, what is the role, how should the United States manage disasters so that we keep people safe? That's part of our national security. And so we need to get this policy right. So that's what we do with the data. Longest answer ever. Okay, in the back. And if you're on the side, it's really hard for me to see you, so you might have to like really wave your hand.
Hi, my name is Cody Dunkel. I'm from Omaha, Nebraska. I've got a question in regards to how do you think, if you take pre-2025, how do you think they could streamline the process of going from the federal to state to local level and advocate for better alignment between the three? Because I noticed that some states are much more aligned in the emergency management side than others. Great example would be Iowa. Iowa is very, very, very good at emergency management. I've, as from firsthand experience with the Greenfield tornado, with the Minden tornado, they were on top of it right away, but not every state's like that. So I'm curious your opinions on that.
Yeah, so you make a great point that it really varies state to state. And when you think about careers in this field, like emergency management is a huge field that people go into. And you're right that like there are different capacities state to state. One of the pieces of data that we look into is the difference between Texas and Florida when it comes to pulling down public assistance dollars. Like what you see is that the head of emergency management in Florida, Kevin Guthrie, has built a machine for how to pull down those public assistance dollars. And as a result, with similar kinds of storm data, Florida gets way more public assistance money than Texas does because of the way that they structure their state government when it comes to emergency management. So there are differences. But there's another part to your question, which is, okay, how could you streamline that money so it doesn't take quite so long and that there is more integration? So first of all, let me say that I think it makes a ton of sense that we have a FEMA disaster strike force. Like it makes no sense for each state to have to invest in its own disaster team that hopefully doesn't have disasters every few months that it has to respond to. Like most states do not get multiple disasters in a year for multiple years in a row. And so it really is great that we have a FEMA team that can deploy all around the country. When it gets to the longer term assistance, like reimbursements for public assistance, huge amount of administrative excess, I would say. So I live in Houston, and I was talking to a friend who runs a small museum there. They got, I think, $3,000 from Hurricane Beryl because their museum was flooded. From public assistance dollars. She said the number of phone calls that we had to have and the number of people that were on them to get this $3,000, like we easily spent more money on the phone calls, making sure that we weren't wasting or abusing or having fraud in our $3,000. And that's something that a lot of people have been criticizing is the administrative cost. So one solution that Craig Fugate was the FEMA administrator for about 8 years under President Obama. He lives in Florida, former Florida Emergency Management Director. He's like, you want to talk about nerd communities. He's like, his passion is cost estimation. And so if instead of having to go on a receipt, every time you spend money, you send your receipts to FEMA and then they send you a reimbursement, that we could all agree with professional standards and permits that, like, okay, we agree on the cost estimate of rebuilding your elementary school, and we're going to give you that money, and we're going to do oversight and auditing on the back end to make sure that it's no waste, fraud, and abuse, but that simple switch from a reimbursement method to a cost estimation method would actually increase speed and really help with communities that have to take on debt. So I think it's kind of sometimes hard to see, but tornadoes often hit smaller communities, and those communities have small budgets. So if you have to rebuild your elementary school that you did not plan for, and maybe you just rebuilt it a couple years ago, that's like going to exceed your annual budget, and you're going to take out loans in order to fill that gap. And so if we switch to a cost estimation method, that would reduce the debt burden on especially small communities. And again, if you're on the side, I'm sorry, I'm not ignoring you. I just can't see you because of the lights. So.
That's so much better.
Don't yell at me, right?
I'm out of Wisconsin, but I grew up in Florida. And my question really focuses on how much of a problem is predatory disaster opportunism, or you might have heard the term disaster capitalism. I know it's been a problem in Puerto Rico, and I know this is a fictional account, but I think we've all are familiar with the concept after watching the second Twisters movie. But that's kind of where my mind is at. How realistic is that a problem in the United States mainland? And if it is a problem, what is being done about it?
Great question. So there's kind of like two levels. So on the one hand, there's like contractor fraud. And, if you've gotten your $3,000 from FEMA and you've got some insurance money and you're trying to maximize the rebuild on your house, and you live in an area that people know a bunch of like federal money and insurance money has just come into, contractor fraud is a huge issue in a lot of communities. So I live in Houston. We've had a lot of disasters. And one of the things that our county attorney has done is really like prominently started to prosecute contractor fraud after disasters. And I think that's something that like your local county attorney, your local law enforcement officials can decide to prioritize that kind of fraud. And I think that's a good thing because it deters that kind of practice, but it's really common. And it's really sad because it exploits people often who are older, who don't have very much money. They often, the money that they are getting, it just takes all of that away, and then they aren't left with very much to, fix really serious issues in their houses. The larger question is about kind of disaster capitalism. And when you look at numbers like the numbers that we're looking at, like Hurricane Harvey, like this is a huge amount of money. And so there are a ton of for-profit firms that come into a community to administer the money. One of the huge issues after Hurricane Katrina was the community was super dissatisfied with the main contractor that implemented their recovery. They made off with like $98 million in profit, and homeowners weren't able to get help from the program. So I think that is a really big issue, and especially when you have this much money on the line. Is it really getting to the people who it's meant for and who really need it? Go ahead. And is there a way for FEMA to come in without the government having to approve of it? So FEMA is the government, and FEMA's been around since the mid-70s, and it was really a response to a lot of Southern governors saying that, okay, it's too damn difficult to deal with the federal government. We cannot deal with all these agencies. We have to have a single coordinating point. And so there's regulations, there's laws, it's called the Stafford Act, that set out requirements for how FEMA has to operate. And let me tell you that FEMA is very focused on the Stafford Act and how it has to comply with the Stafford Act. So the short answer is no, that they are obligated by Congress to follow a certain set of rules. But one thing I am watching is there's a new bill in the House of Representatives called the FEMA Act of 2025, and it would propose to do some things like cost estimation and other things to kind of help speed things up. So if you really love reading legislation, I commend to you the FEMA Act of 2025. Okay. I think there's a question over here. There it is. Okay.
Over here, Senator.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Yeah, 6 o'clock. Sorry. Hey, John Cunningham, Houstonian also, but we live in Dallas now. But done some work for FEMA with the Army Corps of Engineers. And so one of the programs, maybe not highlighted, but the mitigation programs that they have, is there any thought to maybe valuing those more in getting ahead of disasters? All this is behind the duck. It's reactive versus, mitigating some of the areas that are hit more often than others.
So the question is about mitigation and, how do you prepare places? Like, we know that, I went to that weather presentation yesterday and I understood almost none of it, except that North Texas and Oklahoma are going to get hit a lot. So the science of weather and the science of flooding, did anybody go to the presentation yesterday about hydrology? Incredible models of where we think water risk is highest. And so it might make sense that we spend some money, instead of spending so many billions of dollars on the back end, could we shift some of that money to the front end? My hope and ambition as we think about the future is that shift starts to happen. I wouldn't choose to do that through the kind of chaos policymaking of the last year, but I think that what's gone on in the last year and some really tough questions, some really significant slowdowns of money into local places is causing local and state government to rethink, okay, maybe we do need to budget more money to for exactly this. We know we have areas that need to get out of the floodplain or that are really vulnerable to high winds. And so we need to, on the front end, invest to make sure that we can keep insurance in our jurisdiction. People can afford the insurance. And we're not experiencing so much loss when we have a repeated cycle of disaster. So hope is not a policy, but my hope is that we are shifting toward more mitigation. Yeah. Jason has the microphone, so he's in charge.
Hi, Sean Voisey-Olson. I'm from Scottsdale. In light of what you just discussed about changes in policy, new legislation, obviously changing political climate, what can we do as chasers, as members of the meteorological community, as community organizers in order to help shape what the future of FEMA and disaster relief looks like, both in communities, but in policy and legislatively?
Beautiful question. One is, I think you can talk about recovery more. And one of the things I want out of this data is to I'm more than happy. Call me up, email me, whatever. If you are curious about a place, I want to jam out on data with you. Because I think that you guys are incredible communicators. People really listen to you. And I think talking about that, we should be, we all want affordable insurance. We want the damage to not be as bad when, we don't want to see homes wiped off the map. We don't want to see towns wiped off the map. So what can we be doing now to think about that future? You guys know probably more than anyone what it's like to experience disaster over and over and over again. And so you can help people imagine what it would be like to do things differently. And even though it's sometimes really hard to think about this stuff until you yourself have experienced a disaster, I think one of the things that you guys are giving people access to is that firsthand experience of disaster and the windows that open after the chase. So let me if you want to find our data, So many slides. Okay. So you too can access the Disaster Dollar database. And we'd love to, if you ever want to talk about this stuff, seriously, open invitation. Yeah. Right here. You could yell, I'll repeat what you said.
Roger, I used to work at the National Hurricane Center and the Storm Prediction Center, and both of them, as you probably know, have FEMA liaisons who provide forecast information to their FEMA regions in the anticipation of a disaster, whether it's the National Hurricane Center's forecasts for path and intensity and size and storm surge, or our forecast convective outlooks for an hour. I've retired from SPC. Convective outlooks for stuff. How can FEMA better use forecast information like that as a whole to marshal resources into areas in advance of or during the disaster, to the extent it's safe to do so, in order to just get the ball rolling a little bit sooner and to alleviate some of the problems like Kate Hale had down in Dade County after Andrew when she said, "Where is the bleeping cavalry?"
I can tell you, I was in the George R. Brown for about 2 weeks, which is our big convention center. And, you know, what FEMA rode in on a dump truck. And I have never been more happy to see anyone in my life. My husband is here, so him excluded. So, you know, FEMA historically has pre-positioned resources. They have used forecasting. Again, this is one of the changes that we started to see in 2025 that I really don't like, which is there's now a $100,000 cap at FEMA that above which is the Secretary of Homeland Security has to personally sign off on any expense over $100,000. And what we've seen, for example, in Kirk County, most recently in these storms, is that it can delay the winter storms. It can delay FEMA's ability to pre-position resources in places that they know are going to get hit. And so I think there's some real consequences of the choices FEMA and DHS are making this year that are not helping on that exact problem. I have like last couple questions. Yeah, way in the back. Over here. So the question is, don't they hire inspectors for fraud? Yes. And, you know, when I worked for the city of Houston, one of the like scariest days was when the local FBI came in and they were like, "We are watching. Like, if you try to do fraud, we will prosecute you." It was very serious. And so, yeah, there is a inspection regime, but a lot of it depends on your local government too, and like, do they have as a priority prosecuting contractor fraud and things like that? There's a lot of attention on waste, fraud, and abuse in federal programs. I'm not I think there's room for improvement in the efficiency of that effort. All right, last question. On my left, someone
right here.
Over here. I'm like blinded by the light, so go for it, whoever you are.
Hi. So I'm a licensed mental health therapist, and that's the big thing that I think about when we talk about more resilient communities, and particularly beforehand is prepping those communities with skills and other like mental health resources they may need, community support. So I'm curious, when you follow the dollar, particularly in your role, what does the data say about the government's enthusiasm for mental health support? Because historically it's been a little bit of support right after with some therapy and then nothing.
So the question is about federal support. And so as part of FEMA's programs, they often are including case management services. They might offer, you know, as part of their sort of on the ground immediate presence, some resources for mental health, fact sheets, like that sort of thing. I think what's more interesting is when you look at the local spend. So if the federal government gives you a bunch of money in your CDBG-DR program, like one of the things we saw in Joplin was that they prioritized spending on mental health services in response to the data that they had that PTSD had skyrocketed in the community. So when they said, here's what our priorities are for the money, they observed that about their community, and they made it a priority for the money that the federal government gave them. And one of the things I got into this work through that CDBGDR lens. And, you know, one of the best things and the worst things about CDBGDR is that your local community really decides what it's going to spend money on. And so if your community decides to prioritize that, then I think there are ways that the federal government can really support people in your community by supporting that counseling function, both the actual counseling services and the counseling infrastructure, so that you've got physical buildings for your public health services, and that those services include mental health. So if you get hit by a disaster, participate in the public process around your CDBGDR action plan, which before this talk, no one would know what that meant. Last question right here. Okay, amazing. I want to repeat that question so everyone can hear it. But you said you're just like a normal homeschool mom, and yet you're doing like amazing advocacy work to advocate for disaster shelters in communities that are likely to get hit by storms, and how could you use data to make the case to state government, local government, whatever? Edgar told me when we first connected, Edgar told me about the amazing fundraiser that happened, I think for Rolling Fork, for some of the to do shelters there. And like the first thing that came to my mind as someone who follows federal money is like, can federal dollars pay for that? And so one thing I would do if this was, it sounds like you're doing amazing work. I would look up the places that you want to build shelters and see if you can make the case that, oh, wait, there's federal money. Why don't we prioritize shelters as a way that we spend federal money? And when we looked at Moore, Oklahoma, as everyone said, like hit over and over and over again, one of the really sad stories about the elementary schools that were hit is that they didn't have storm shelters. They didn't have tornado shelters. And so when those schools are rebuilt, they're rebuilt often with federal dollars or insurance dollars, and they can be rebuilt with shelters inside them. So the federal money can be really hard to see. I hope that our database makes it easier to visualize, but really what I hope is that it makes it easier to imagine what could be possible if we spent more resiliently, if we spent with a view towards the future and the world that we want to live in with fewer disaster damage, less disaster damage. Thank you very much.
All right. We still feeling good, right? We got that mid-afternoon energy. Yeah! Oh my gosh, I love you guys. You guys are fantastic. So how about, I don't know, a Canon giveaway perhaps worth $3,500? Woo!
Yes.
Now Jeff is going to talk a little bit about it and introduce Mr. Canon himself.
Yes, Mr. Bobby with
Yeah.
Canon, the senior product specialist from North America, is here today, right? Bobby, I've known you for how many years?
Geez, how long have we known each other now?
Long time.
About 10 years,
A
which
long
is pretty
time.
crazy.
So I shot with Canon even since I was like 16, 18 years old, in the early days, little film, slide film and all those kind of things. Had a wonderful time with Canon equipment. We love it. So Bobby's been a great sponsor over the years. He's been here every year for us the last 4 or 5 years, been a major sponsor here at the show. This year he's got a major announcement. We're going to have a contest for everybody across North America. It's open to everybody, right? And I'm going to let Bobby talk about it because it's really special. At the end of the day, June 1st, we're going to have a major two camera giveaways, right? And you got a major, it's a big deal, right?
Yeah,
Lots of nice equipment. I'm going to do Bobby.
First and foremost today, what I really want to talk to you guys about is quality photography. And if you listened to the panel discussion earlier, one of the things that you kept hearing about in that discussion was that quality of information, the quality of the content, and really building that credibility with your audience. That's what you want to do. And good content, killer content, is king in terms of your ability to go out and really maximize whatever kind of content that you're trying to post. Okay? Good photography can be really decided very quickly when you think about it. It's based on 4 things. It's good focus, it's good exposure, it's good white balance, and it's a good composition, right? But the reality of how many images are posted to the internet every day. Think about that, right? And how fast do you swipe by all of the junk that you see on the internet? That's what you really have to concentrate on in terms of what makes your photography different from the next guy. So we want to make sure that you understand we want to promote having the right tools so that you're successful and not frustrated by sometimes how complicated this can be. And, you know, in the heat of the moment, you don't want to be frustrated. You want to have success. And so that's what we want to really promote in being here this weekend. But at the same time, we're going to kind of make this live a little bit longer in that there is going to be a photo contest after the summit, and it's going to last through June the 1st, which is the end of sort of chase season for most people. But the deadline will be June the 15th. And so for people that, even if you can't go and chase during the storm season, the photo contest is going to be about sunrises and sunsets. Everybody sees that. You know, think about how you start a day and how you end a day and how you see that information, you know, and how you can convey it to others. That's the beauty in the world around us. And that's what we're all here to learn about, right? This is an equal mix of sharing passions of science and education and safety, you know, and like Reed says, never stop chasing, but it is about the education too. So let's make the most of it. If you haven't looked at your My Radar app, you know, the 2 cameras that are in the back of the room, those are Canon cameras that are, you know, streaming this summit to everybody on the internet. So, you know, Canon is all about quality images. And so that's what I want to be here for you. If you have questions, I'm in the back of the room. Please stop and talk to me. If you have cameras, have questions, that's why I'm here.
Woo! I love it. Yeah.
Awesome. I mean, that's awesome. We really appreciate it. I can tell you from personal experience, not just shooting Canon gear, is also shooting raw. You know, if you look at what's happening today, right? The better quality images you take, it brings higher amounts of money. When the newspaper calls you, the TV station calls you, a production house calls you, a book calls you, a magazine calls you. If you tell them you shot it in RAW, if it's 12-bit, 14, 16-bit, they're gonna pay you. They're gonna pay you well. And I can from experience, I can tell you, I've shot beautiful tornadoes on JPEG, or I shot them in the wrong format. Now today, it's all about RAW, right? If you shoot it in RAW, 4K, it's RAW, uncompressed. That's the kind of stuff that we're doing today, right? Because it's gonna be great video or great pictures even 18 years from now. So that's the message. Super excited about Canon, super excited about this contest. I'm so excited also about sunrise and sunset. You want to show that story? Somebody here at the conference want to show it? Why don't you show it?
The young lady shared it with you.
So I had a little young lady here from Utah last night. Said, Mr. Jeff, I want to show you something really special. I don't get a lot of weather in Utah, but there's something I really look forward to every day. And I said, what's that? She opens up her iPhone. She goes, this is the pictures I take when I get up every morning. It's a beautiful sunrise, and this is what I shoot in Utah. And every day after you have a hard day, there's always, you can look forward to a beautiful sunset. It's absolutely amazing what this little 9-year-old, 10-year-old girl shot. She was so excited when she talked to Mr. Bobby yesterday about the contest. Her pictures were fabulous, right? But to hear this young little 9-year-old talk about the beauty of waking up every day, shooting this beautiful sky, she looks forward to that every day. And then sunset, there's a beautiful sunset we can all be looking forward to. And a lot of times when we're out chasing, there's a lot of amazing things that happen. And I think using Canon gear, our phones, it's just we're able to, you know, pass it down to the next generation. And there's a lot of enthusiasm with that. So
think about all the storms you get to see. You know, they happen at the right time of the day. You know, they pass around sunset. Think about what all the clouds do to a sunset, you know, and how it changes your outlook on what you see every day.
Like golden hour.
That golden hour. And it changes every day. That's the beauty of life.
So what are
Every
they-
day is a good day when you learn something new.
So what are they going to win? We've got a minute and a half.
About a minute and a half. Does anybody have any
So-
questions? Just yell them out. We'll try to answer it. Man, those lights are bright.
Yeah, I know they are bright.
They're really bright. Anybody got any questions? Contest questions for Bobby?
The prize is an R6 Mark II kit, which is a camera and a really nice zoom lens to go along with it. $3,500 value, right? So it's for everybody to enter. There's no age limitation. It's not for the young people, not just for the old folks. It's for everybody. So please join in. Yes, sir.
Still photos only, or can we do time lapse?
Great question, Mike Nelson. That's a Canon decision. That's not a Pulaski decision.
Well,
if you know me, I want it all. I want the best time lapse.
A time
best
lapse in the
photos.
grand scheme of things is really it's a still photo. It's just a sequence of still photos. So at this point, let's say still photos, but a time lapse I think would still qualify as a still.
With our last 30 seconds, where do you submit?
Great question. Next week, starting middle of next week, you'll be able to go to the National Storm Chasers webpage. You'll be able to upload the form and your picture starting next week.
I love it.
Yes.
Between now and the time, June the 1st, when the contest ends, and then into the deadline, I think we said was June the 15th.
Yep.
Yeah.
So even if you're chasing June the 1st, you still got 2 weeks to get it in.
That's how this year goes, right?
Woo! I love it. We
Thank you,
nailed
guys. Thanks,
it.
everybody.
Awesome.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Canon. All right. So are you excited for our next speaker? So this is someone who has been chasing tornadoes for almost 30 years. Tony Lawback is a legend in his own right. He's incredible, and he's seen some of the worst and devastating tornadoes that we've seen in the past 3 decades. And he's going to talk to you about his career, the ups, the downs, and what it takes to sustain a 30-year career. So without further ado, Tony, get here on the stage.
You can hear me? Sweet. That's always the worst problem about going up and speaking in front of people, is relying on everybody else to make sure you look good. She said, my name is Tony Lawback, and I've essentially chased from Twister to Twisters, both movies, neither of which had an effect on why I did my career, but it's just kind of cool to think that I have survived the bookmark of both of these storms. I'll give you a little background on who I am, because a lot of you may not have a clue, and that's fine. I don't have a clue who I am either, but anything that has been done in storm chasing, I think at some point or another I've done. I've been chasing storms since my first tornado in 1996. Their entire duration of the project, which led us to Discovery Channel's Storm Chasers. I was on National Geographic. I made my debut on Women's Entertainment. That's pretty cool. Freelance video for nearly 20 years. I've worked at several TV stations as a full-time employee. I have freelanced for dozens of others across the country, and currently I work for the AccuWeather Network. I am a field reporter and meteorologist for them. So that's quite fun. We all have our start. Some of you guys probably experienced weather in some form that got you interested in this. Me, I was born with the disease, and that was something that started early on in life. I was scared to death of tornadoes. My parents had a book, and I wish I could remember what it was. It was just a novel that had a tornado on the cover, and the tornado scared me so much as a kid, I threw away the book because I did not want it in the house. But I was always interested in natural disasters, tornadoes, hurricanes, earthquakes, you name it, I was interested in it. And this is 4th grade me looking much happier with this grade card than I should have been, because I had a lot of C's on this. I played a lot of Super Mario Brothers in 4th grade. But this 4th grade kid spent all of his free time in the library of his elementary school reading encyclopedias on tornadoes, natural disasters. And I wanted to learn. It was something that fascinated me.
And we're coming to you from the Storm Chaser Summit in Westminster, Colorado. It's a culmination of the brightest minds in meteorology, storm chasers, and just general weather enthusiasts. There's a lot of young people here too. The vibes are really cool. I want to show you what's going on. Check this out. We actually have a number of computers lined up with a storm chasing simulator. And I can see not only do they have what looks to be a virtual driving configuration with realistic graphics, they also have the radar here as well. So it's a really, really cool way to kind of learn about the logistics of storm chasing and really just how to read radar. And it's a good way of doing it without actually throwing yourself out in the field and not knowing what you're doing at first, which can be pretty dangerous. But let's go ahead and continue to walk this way. We'll keep walking down here. Really want to show you a couple of other things here. We got the Wheel of Weather. This is apparently Weatherville here, and you can see what's going on. A lot of folks interested in this here. A lot of these are brought to you by sponsors here, automatic emergencies, weather radios and stuff as well. Now, being a weather nerd myself, and I know a lot of people are going to really dig this, come over here. We got a whole booth set up to the movie Twister. I know a lot of people have seen this movie, and they got all kinds of merchandise here. And I've been told that every single decal that you put on your vehicle actually gives you an extra 5-mile-per-hour horsepower. But this is a really cool setup. They got all things going on with the movie, associated with the museum. If you've been up to Waukeeta, shout out to Linda up there. And just some really, really awesome stuff for those, of course. And I'm sure there's a lot of us who are kind of obsessed with the movie Twister. I know a bit of an underrated thing, I think, is the soundtrack to the movie, but that's a whole nother story. We continue to cover the Storm Chaser Summit live from Westminster, Colorado. And we are here at the 2026 iteration of the Storm Chasing Summit. I'm here with my good friend and coworker, Eric Fox. Eric, we've known each other a long time. What was the inspiration that led to the beginnings? This is the 6th year, I believe, of this now.
Yeah, you know, believe it or not, I met you at ChaserCon in Denver.
Yes.
I don't know, what, 20-something years ago?
I think it was something like that, yeah.
So, ChaserCon started here in Denver, and it was how I actually got into the community. I was a young guy in the military, getting my meteorology degree and working, and I was able to meet people, greet people, and made me who I am in the weather community. And it all started at ChaserCon. Well, Tim Samaras passed away.
Yes.
And ChaserCon was around with Roger Hill, and it just kept. I wanted to keep it around. They got to the point where it was not really going to go forward anymore, and so I kind of took them and took ChaserCon, and I made it my own. But I have what I call a village around me.
Yes.
You know, we're a nonprofit, 501c3. Our whole purpose is to give back. We put in storm shelters all across the world, if we can, in low-income communities, just to help. The Storm Chasers giving back. But within that is safety, education, safety, training, driver's training. Yesterday we had first aid CPR training, just all encompassing. And there's a lot of research, high level meteorology going on here to try to inspire kids. And so that's what I'm about, is inspiring people and just giving back. And so you got machines like behind me, you know, that do a lot of great research, and a lot of that, it goes on. That's why I call it a summit, because there's a lot of people here that get together.
It's really cool because you can see some of the brilliant minds of meteorology going out there and doing a little bit about teaching about how to examine radar. I mean, really important things here that I think will inspire younger meteorologists and kind of propel them to think on kind of that level about what meteorologists and what storm chasers are seeing. And I think that's really cool that you're bringing together storm chasers and weather enthusiasts here with these experts. This has been something that's been growing now for a number of years. Every year it seems to be bigger.
Yeah, this is our 6th year, right? So COVID set us back a little bit, but it was okay because it allowed us to grow slowly. And now we're getting to where we're selling out. And what I am inspired by is the younger kids that are here.
Yeah.
They're wanting to be here to learn and meet the great people that are out there that are trying to do good in the weather community. Because look, weather's the newest science there is. These kids are going to need to be around.
Yeah, no, it's really important. And it's, you say that it is a young science. There's a lot of new things going on in the weather world. So cool that they see this. And then you got some really cool stuff going on. Chaser of the Year.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this is some pretty neat stuff. Looking forward to it.
The Chaser Hall of Fame.
Chaser Hall of Fame, yes.
The Storm Chasing Hall of Fame. So basically those people are forefathers that come before us to allow us this. You know, the Chuck Doswells of the world who created everything we know about severe weather out there, like the textbooks, right? So it's what you got to give back, and that's what we're doing. You know, remember the prior generation, help the new generation.
Really, really excited to see that, and thanks for doing this, Eric. And it's real good to talk to you and see you here. We'll be coming to you live from the Storm Chaser Summit 2026 all through the weekend.
Brought in several different people representing several different careers. Some are directly meteorology, some are not. Related to meteorology, but not necessarily meteorology, just so you guys could hear from a variety of people. If you guys want to just line up, like along the front here. I'm just going to pass the microphone down, and you guys can each introduce yourselves, maybe talk a little bit about your education and what you do for your career. All right. So we're going to start with Ryan.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ryan Pitt. I'm from the Wichita, Kansas area. I'm not a meteorologist. Wanted to give you guys a different perspective that uses weather every day. I'm in aviation. I'm a pilot. So went to Southern Illinois University. I think that's all for me.
Hey, I'm Eddie Aldrine. I'm Director of Emergency Management for Nemaha County, Kansas. About an hour north of Topeka, if you guys know where that's at. Just like Ryan, I'm not a meteorologist either, but my background, master's degree in emergency management and counterterrorism type law enforcement stuff. So,
David Bodine. I'm a professor at the University of Oklahoma. I did meteorology for both my bachelor's through PhD.
I'm Kevin Scharfenberg. I'm a meteorologist. I went to the University of Oklahoma as well for a bachelor's and master's degree, and I've had a variety of roles in the National Weather Service since then.
We're starting a trend. We're about to. I'm Gerard Bailey. I'm a meteorologist in the broadcast sector. I'm a chief meteorologist at Fox 45 in Baltimore, but of course that career takes us all over the country. So I had a job starting in Myrtle Beach, Kansas City, Chicago, and have done stints elsewhere. And I also went to University of Oklahoma, Boomer Sooner, and went to UNC Charlotte to finish up my career. Been in the broadcast industry 18 years, chasing for, oh my gosh, Gabe, almost 30. Wow, we're old.
Hey, I'm Dave Larrick. I'm a professor of meteorology at the University of Northern Colorado, up about an hour north in Greeley. I am from Minnesota originally, got my bachelor's at St. Cloud State, and then did my master's and PhD here in Colorado at Colorado State University.
Jeff Petrosky, graduated high school. Was around a bunch of brilliant people in OU and Oklahoma for many, many years, and it rubbed off on me. So anyway, I built houses in Tulsa for 25 years, got out of that and went into work for Barron back in 94, been there 35 years. So I'm a sales rep for North America, sell Barron, digital products, radars, those kind of things, dual pole. And today we're here for that and been chasing for about 40 years. So that's it. Awesome.
I'm Gabe Garfield. I went to the University of Oklahoma for meteorology. I got 2 degrees, and I ended up working at the National Weather Service for about 10 years in a research role. And then I shifted careers, not because I don't love meteorology, but it was kind of honestly about a girl. And I moved to East Tennessee, got an MBA, and started a career in the corporate world. But because I love meteorology, I actually have been doing a tornado chasing course. So I run that. It's called the Tornado Chaser Transformation. So I've been doing that about the last year.
So how many college students do we have here? Raise your hand. Lots of college students. How many high school students do we have? Any middle school, elementary? John. Awesome. So we got people from all different levels of education, different backgrounds, things like that. So I guess what we're going to do now, we're going to take some questions from you guys. Does anyone have any questions for any of these guys, just about anything and everything? Yes. Oh, here you go. Let's hear your questions.
What are we doing?
So we are learning about different career paths in meteorology and other careers that are related to meteorology. And these guys up here all do something related to weather, forecasting, things that would be related to storm chasing, sort of. Any other questions? Yes. So the question is, for meteorology, what do you think is more important, chemistry or physics pathway? Any of you guys any professors?
I would lean toward physics. I mean, chemistry will be something that you'll have to take, but physics, I mean, meteorology at its core is applied physics. If you're interested in atmospheric chemistry, I mean, that is something a track you can do, but the more physics classes you take, the more problem-solving skills you build, and that's really helpful for career or a degree in meteorology.
Okay.
I will say that for the National Weather Service, having a coursework in physics is required to be a meteorologist. So definitely want to check that one off if you're looking at the National Weather Service maybe one day.
All right. Question in the back. Sure. Did everybody hear the question okay? Sure. So I'm going to take her question and then we'll ask her question. Is that okay? Awesome. So the question is, she's wanting to know about different pathways, like what kind of education you need for like different types of careers with meteorology. Like some require doctorate degrees, some require bachelor's degrees. Sure.
Take a stab. I mean, Gerard, you probably could tell more about the broadcast than I can, but as far as the research track goes, I would say, Kevin, maybe David, you can chime in on this, but I'd say that you probably would want to aim for a PhD if you're going the research track. If you're going broadcasting, you'd probably be okay with a bachelor's degree. Some broadcasters, I assume, do master's degrees these days, but maybe you have some comments.
Broadcast is a little bit looser for a multitude of reasons. Yes, you got to have an education of some sort in some way, in some formality. Some people have actually been getting their education in meteorology while they are working. So we have had reporters want to kind of transition and work as meteorologists. As they're learning the whole systems and everything, they're working under us, they can actually do programs at the same time. So Mississippi State offers a great program where it's kind of a dual thing where you can work and still do this online. That is a very popular thing for some of them. I went the traditional route. I did a 4-year degree, got my bachelor's. From there on, I mean, that is your education. That's the base. At meteorology on the broadcast sector, you're not doing research like Gabe and some of these other really big brains are doing. You're just trying to understand the basic concepts and be able to communicate it to people on an everyday level. They don't need to know all the intricate physics of it. You have to understand it, and then you have to translate it. So basic education first, good communication skills is required at our level. There are some people that I've known that are, of course, a whole lot smarter than me that I've rubbed elbows with in school like Gabe. But Gabe is a very well-spoken man at OU. But there are some maybe not having such great communication skills, but they're brilliant. They're brilliant, and they can continue to educate themselves beyond. But the broadcast sector is a little bit easier if you can understand the concepts and you're good at communicating them. So a lot of education beyond meteorology for what I do. So it's a little bit more, I guess, more wider variety. You guys want to add to it from your sectors?
So emergency management's going to be completely different. You can get any of the degrees that you want, but really you need the experience. Experience matters when you're dealing with disasters. You really can't learn emergency management through school. You need to be boots on the ground with your street smarts. Obviously, the degree helps, but for me, I was in law enforcement in the Kansas City metro area before I became emergency manager. You can either go that route. A lot of the EMs are firefighters or EMS. If you don't want to go the first responder route, really, what I'd say is probably volunteer with the American Red Cross or United Way or something like that. I know a lot of my colleagues in Kansas have come through that way, and they don't even have degrees in emergency management. So I think we lean more on the experience level.
I can talk the aviation pilot route for anybody who's interested. In today's world, bachelor's degree isn't really even required for most airlines. If you want to go the airline route, you go the corporate route, flying, for private companies. Most of them don't care about education as well. It's all about the flight time. Myself, I got a bachelor's degree in aviation management, associate's aviation flight, so it's not really required.
Yeah, so going a little bit more towards the meteorology side of things, if you're interested in being a forecaster, and that's kind of the fundamental thing that you want to do, a bachelor's degree is going to get you there. Now, the higher education that you have, if you go get a master's, then it's going to make you more marketable. You're going to be more competitive for some of those jobs. But the master's and PhD, going to grad school, is really more for if you want to get into the research side of things, if you want to become a professor. I realized early on in my undergraduate days that I had a passion for teaching and teaching my fellow students on how to learn things better. And then I went and huddled in the fetal position for a day once I realized, oh my God, I got to go to grad school and get a PhD. So master's degree, you can be a researcher and you can be part of the science and developing new technologies and flying on aircrafts and taking measurements and all that cool stuff. But leading a research group, being in charge of what your proposals are going to investigate, that's where having the PhD then really matters, because then you can be in charge. And then obviously working your way up, being directors of different institutions, scripts and things, those folks are going to have PhDs as well. So it kind of depends on what level of participation and what kind of passion you have for the science.
Yeah. Yep. So I'm going to come, I agree with everybody what they've said, 100%. In today's environment, if I can rewrite history the way I see it today, if I'm in your shoes, whatever your age you're at, look at coding, look at AI, and as you go forward from this point on, you need to think, what problem can I solve anywhere on the globe, because it's global communications, we have global weather, teleconnections. If you can solve somebody's problem on a global scale, you're going to be invaluable to whatever company's going to hire you. You can basically write your own ticket. So you got to figure out what problem do we need to have solved in America, around the world, work on that, code for that, understand that, and if you can solve real world problems, you'll get hired before you even leave college, I promise you, right? That's the world we're in today, and that's where I would spend 100% of my effort. But you need your education, you need your science, you need your all those things. Another thing that's growing across all sectors, and I think the government side would tell us this, the private sector, I will tell you that in the sell side, is you have to sell yourself from the time you get out of high school to the time you're in college. Your deans, which college am I going to attend, what value do I have to OU if I understand something that's going to solve a problem they've been working on for 20 years. You become much more valuable candidate. Maybe you get a free ticket to college because you've got something that nobody else has to offer, right? That is how people look at you. It happens literally from the time you leave high school till you retire. You always got to be a benefit to somebody. Every day I'll wake up, it's like, what can I do at my job to help somebody create a problem or solve a problem that they're having on any scale? And that's how I live my life every day. And I can't tell you who it was, but a company engaged me about 6 years ago in an environment like this, and a major global company. And I said, what's your number one problem? And they shared their number one problem with me. And I said, I can solve that problem with you. Let's meet. And I got a meeting in the following week, right? So those are how you engage people, and that's how you become problem solvers, right? That's what I encourage you to do. And you'll live a very successful life, I promise you. Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Oh, you got one more?
I just wanted to add one piece of advice. If you're going in an undergraduate program in meteorology, I mean, there's a lot of opportunity along the way to figure out what you want to do. You can intern at a TV station, job shadow in the weather service, do a private sector internship. You don't have to know exactly what you want to do. Maybe you do a research job and you love that, or you can try any number of those things, but take advantage of all those opportunities that are available to you.
Thank you guys for all that. Now we had your question. Here, I'll bring you the microphone. You're the first.
Thank you. Is there any schools in Kentucky that you would think, no, not schools, jeez. Is there any colleges in Kentucky that you think would be good for meteorology? Like based on price and teachers and all that. Like, is there any schools in Kentucky? Or whatever they'll call it at this point.
You can't be afraid to travel, because there's no telling what you experience that you could get if you go someplace else. You want to shoot for the stars, find the best school out there. I'm not going to try to oversell it, but I hear OU's a pretty good school. So do your best in school, get good grades, and aim for the school that you might just think could be the best when you want to go and visit some of these. Doesn't mean you can't get a great education at others. I also did a stint at UNC Charlotte. That was a great school, and it was much, much closer, and it's also a little bit cheaper. But I understand everyone's going to probably be looking at some of the best schools, and OU, highly competitive. But it doesn't mean that if you don't get in, or you can't afford it, that you can't still get a great education in any of these other schools and do what you want to do. So I don't want to, scare everyone, say you'll never get in, but aim for something good, and maybe you never know where it could take you. I mean, I learned some incredible stuff, met some incredible people, and had an experience that was unreal. And I'm glad I left my home state, so don't be afraid to move out. Anyone?
And I know with in-state tuition and all that, it's a big cost difference between in-state and out-of-state. So where I went to school, Southern Illinois University, at the time I was there, if you were a bordering state from Illinois, you got in-state tuition, and Tennessee actually was added to that as well. So keep that in mind too. If you're in a bordering state, check out to see if they offer in-state tuition for a bordering state.
Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Do you live in a rural or urban setting? Okay. So there's these groups, and when I presented this morning, I talked about this, but there are certain groups that are called community emergency response teams. That it's a civic organization it's a volunteer organization too, but it gets you involved in responding to certain disasters, or even simply just community events where they need volunteers. That looks really good on resumes, especially for college. It also gives you good people skills that they'll need when they go to college. So I highly recommend doing that.
While you're in high school, don't be afraid to do something different. I was the first guy in high school to do a forecast for our daily broadcast, and it then eventually got printed. I just went up to the librarian at the time because we barely had anything. This was a long time ago. I said, "Can I use the computer? I want to start doing forecasts." And she, "Yeah, that would be great." Those are the kinds of things you want to get involved in. But more importantly, while you're in school, you got to take every science and math class you can and learn every bit of it you can, because you're going to need that base under you to excel in college.
And if the interest is maybe the research route or the applied meteorology route, I totally agree with that. Science fairs are still a thing in most communities, I think. So just going, that's a way to get some feedback early on, kind of hone your science skills a little bit. And even like mathletics or math Olympics competitions, things like that, are a good way to meet other people and get some feedback outside of class as well.
Anything STEM related.
Yeah,
you can't go wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm actually going to be judging middle school and high school science fair here in Colorado next week. So there's a good connection between a lot of the universities and the K through 12 programs in those areas. So it's good places to make connections and show how passionate you are about science and finding ways to explore something you're interested in that might be meteorology, storm chasing, or related. I'm at University of Northern Colorado. We're kind of the opposite of OU. We're really tiny. So you could be in a class of 100 people in your intro meteorology class at OU. You might be in a class of 10 at my program. So there's a lot of different ways to become a meteorologist. And I would say, we had questions about in-state tuition and what can you do during high school. You can try to get college credit for certain classes, or you can think about, all right, I got to build my science, but I want to maintain my passion at the same time, and I don't have a lot of money. You can explore science projects. You can then take a couple of years and go to a community college. You don't have to jump into a 4-year degree. You can go grab all of those science prereq things, the calculus, the physics, the chemistry. You can go take those at a community college, and then all that stuff will transfer in, and then you can do your meteorology degree in a couple of years after that. So there's a lot of different ways that you can kind of blend your high school transition into your 4-year program.
I have to say one thing. This is all the traditional route, and we've all been old enough to do this. But there have been some people out there that I have seen that have blown my mind, that have never gone to school. Self-taught by anything that they've seen online, and I would think that they already had their degree with how knowledgeable they were. There's a couple guys that live and work as just, off the side. They have their own weather pages. They put up their own things. And that's kind of the thing of the kids today more than anything. They're their own bosses with their own pages, their own followers, and they do that just by their own education, by what they do. So if you're curious, the world's wide open to you right now. We all had to go to libraries to learn stuff and open encyclopedias. The internet just started, and we didn't have people online already teaching this stuff. You guys have the access that we wish we had. I had to read every National Geographic I could to learn something. All right, and now I'm really jealous of what they have access to now. So you can go do it on your own. You don't have to go to school to still go online. Make your own forecasts. Obviously, you want to have the education because you don't want to be giving bad information. So we prefer if you get a good education, but you can still begin, and there's nothing wrong with that too.
I'm going to date myself. I'll go way back. Well, back when I was a kid, about your age, about 14 years old, in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, they had a fire department had an explorers group. There was about 8 or 10 male and females that belonged to it, and so each month they would take us to a different venue to educate us. Right. So one outing, we went to the Weather Service, and at that event there were some storms going on. And I was so fascinated with back then it was called the WR57, and it would make a clicking noise. You could see the little VIP levels 1 through 6, and the radar would go around, and you go click, 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 click. And watching the storms, watching the radar stop, and you do RHI on the storm, like how high is the storm? Oh, that's really cool. And got hooked on it. And after that, I'd ride my 10-speed Yeah, I was 14 years old. I had to get, my parents took me a couple times to Tulsa Airport. I lived in Broken Arrow, like 15 miles one way. I'd ride my 10-speed all the way from Broken Arrow to the airport because I was so fascinated about weather, right, and technology. That's how I got hooked at a young age. But if I didn't belong in the Explorer group, I would have never been embraced that. So locally, whatever town you're in, look at NWA, AMS chapters locally. They help in this situation as well, educate and things. Local weather service offices is the same way. But get involved in the community and those things. It'll really educate them, and they'll find something that really draws on their heartstring and like, ooh, I really want to go this path. That's what I'd recommend too.
All right, so I want to give you guys a lot of time to be able to come up and talk to these guys one-on-one with your individual questions. So I'm going to take one more group question. Anyone else? Oh, sure. Go ahead.
We're here at the 2026 National Storm Chaser Summit, and you recognize the guy next to me. Josh Morgerman, our favorite chaser dude, is here and presenting because this is a huge deal for storm chasers, hurricane hunters all across the country.
This conference is like the creme de la creme of storm chaser conferences. This is the one, all the big guns are here, and it's a great time to kind of share information and just be a community.
And you're speaking. You're not just here to learn, you're here to present. What are you talking about, and why did you choose that?
Talking about Hurricane Melissa, and maybe some of the viewers are sick of me talking about it, but two things about Melissa. One, it was meteorologically just an unbelievable storm. Unbelievable storm, smashed so many records, so it's fascinating on that level, but also as a chase, it was a really tough chase, and getting through it in one piece required a lot of it required like all of my best techniques to get through it, and I want to share that here because I got a lot of young followers that I feel like they can maybe learn something from how I got through that in one piece, how I got out alive.
And we were talking earlier, when you were 15, you didn't have weather nerds and people to look up to, and that's one of the things that's happening here. There's a lot of young people and people interested in meteorology and learning, and is that a big part about why you come to these conferences?
100%. When I was 15 years old, I was a lonely weather nerd with no friends. I would hide my hurricane tracking map in my Trapper Keeper, and I was scared that anyone would see it because I get beaten up because I was such a nerd. I am so jealous of the kids now that they could celebrate their weather nerdiness with online community and coming to things like this. Their parents bring them. It is great, and I want to be part of that and just kind of be a role model and show them, hey, there is a future in being a weather nerd.
And it's not just for the weather nerds and for furthering our community. We can also bring this to people at home because we take these techniques and we apply them, like you said, to your chases, but then you take what's on your chases, the information that you gather and the data, and you share that.
Yeah, folks don't realize, I think a lot of people think of storm chasing as like it's just adrenaline junkies, that's all it is. The biggest part of my chasing, and I don't talk about it much on WeatherNation because I don't want to bore everyone, but the biggest thing for me is collecting data, which goes to the National Hurricane Center, and they use that data to kind of look at the storm afterward and understand what happened, and that in turn helps sort of improve the forecasts and everything. So it all goes into that science for warning the public. So we're not all just yahoos out there trying to get the sexy clip.
Right.
We're actually advancing the science.
And you're communicating that to us as we're forecasting live on WeatherNation, and we're getting that and bringing it to people at home too. Well, thank you so much, Josh, for taking some time to talk to us today. We're glad to be here at the National Storm Chaser Summit, and you can catch it with us live on Rumble, on YouTube, on WeatherNation.
Past the hour, time for your central regional forecast. Let's get you up to Michigan, where earlier you can see the winds are pretty strong on this Friday, and that windy conditions and the cold areas this way will continue to expand and build more to the south across the areas of Wisconsin, Michigan, eventually throughout the rest of the Northeast. But for many of us here across the central and southern plains, our forecast looks pretty good, all because of high pressure. So if you have any weekend plans, it's looking pretty good. We're going to get to those details coming up. But I'll start here across the Great Lakes. We do continue with more lake effect snow chances, and that's why we have winter weather advisories in place through Saturday. So this is going to be very localized. Light lake effect snow across Lake Michigan, Lake Superior. Otherwise, though, we're seeing things very dry. Saturday, though, we may see another shot of snow dropping southwards going to your Saturday night. Sunday, we're seeing winds breezy out of the south. Here comes the next cold front that could bring us more chances of snow as we head into the first part of next week. And our forecast shows that the snow should be light, but we may see a few isolated locations where some of the amounts may be pretty heavy. Of course, it all depends on the exact location of those snow bands. For tonight, we'll see a temperature of 1 in Marquette. We're 4 below in Duluth, 4 above 0 for Kalamazoo. For your Saturday, we'll see temperatures in the teens and 20s, feeling a whole lot colder than that. Sunday, we'll see temperatures near 30 for Chicago, 42 degrees out towards Davenport. Here's your forecast in Green Bay. Temperatures are staying above freezing through Tuesday. For Monday and Tuesday, a little cooler as we head towards your Thursday afternoon, but not really seeing much snow in your forecast. Here across the upper Midwest, not much really ongoing here. Lots of sunshine, winds coming out of the west. It's going to warm things up pretty good across South Dakota, also into Nebraska too. Now next week, we may see some western energy trying to build more towards the east. Maybe some light rain, light snow across the I-94 corridor between Bismarck and Minneapolis as that tries to drop further down to the south. But again, not much snow, maybe an inch or two across the I-94 corridor of that system coming in for the first part of next week. But the big story here is the above average warmth. So it's very cold across areas, across the arrowhead of Minnesota, northern Wisconsin, across the UP of Michigan. Lows elsewhere across Nebraska through the Dakotas are not as cold for this time of the year. We're looking at lows in the 20s and 30s. Look at the forecast in Kearney, Nebraska. We're seeing temperatures on Monday near 70 degrees. That's well above average. For Rapid City, seeing temperatures near 70 on Sunday. Bismarck seeing temperatures in the 50s, so that warmer air will continue to expand more towards the east over the next couple of days. Minneapolis, you're looking at some warm temperatures in your forecast too. We're forecasting a high of 41 degrees on Monday. Lows at night in the 20s and 30s. Another cold night for tonight with a low around 8 degrees. As we drop further south across Kansas and Missouri, maybe a few isolated rain showers in your forecast with some moisture building in for the first part of next week. Otherwise, you're looking at a pretty nice forecast here, especially for the weekend. For the overnight, temperatures in the 20s and 30s. We'll see winds out of the south for your Saturday. Temperatures in the 50s and 60s, even warmer on Sunday. We're near 60 for Kansas City. 52 degrees in St. Louis. We're middle 60s across Springfield, 70 in Ponca City. Here's your forecast in Wichita, 70 degrees on Monday before we see temperatures cooling down into the 50s by Wednesday and Thursday of next week. Let's drop south now and talk more about some rain starting to increase across areas of Texas for the weekend.
Yeah, we might get some of that moisture into western Texas this weekend. The South Padre Island, you can see it's breezy out there. This was earlier. You can see the palm trees swaying a bit as we've had some wind there along the Texas Gulf Coast. But temperatures have been mild. We actually have some warmer weather that's in that forecast. Temperatures are going to get above average for many spots here in the south central region. Now, that West Texas forecast might get some shower activity as we get into our Saturday and our Sunday. So I'll be talking about that as well. First, though, low temperatures tonight. We see conditions down to the low 30s into Enid, Oklahoma at 31. Tulsa's going to down to about 34 degrees at that wake up temperature, 36 for the River Valley of Fort Smith, Arkansas. Then we see that forecast for Saturday. Here comes that warmth. Abilene 77, Amarillo 74, Dallas, you should top out at about 70. And you can see those conditions in Oklahoma City, not bad at all. Sunshine and a high of 60. So Saturday, I think it's going to be clear, and you can see we've got the wind barbs. Those are showing the direction the wind is coming, so you can see it's a southerly flow. So we will get some moisture, but we're going to have some warm air as well. So temperatures are going to be above normal. We'll get some spotty shower chances as we get into Sunday. Monday, there's that next round of moisture. So this is that moisture that Jesse was alluding to that's going to be impacting West Texas. It will spread Monday and Tuesday into, say, central and eastern Texas and over into the Mississippi River Valley. So when we look at our forecast highs over the next several days, staying above those normal conditions. Dallas 59 is our normal high in this time of February. We're in the 70s Sunday, Monday, Monday and Tuesday. So feeling very warm there in Big D. And notice how there's no cool down in sight. Dallas, you are looking great if you like the warm temperatures. There could be a shot of some rain by Tuesday. We saw that there with the forecast. That might help to cool it down a bit if you don't like those warm temperatures. More on the forecast for the lows tonight. 47 in New Orleans, all the way down to Brownsville. We'll be in the low 50s for that wake-up temperature in the Rio Grande Valley. And then we'll rise to about 80 degrees in Brownsville, 80 in San Antonio and Austin, and about 72 in Houston for Saturday afternoon. So we got that cold front, and that falls apart as it moves south. Then we see some of that moisture starting to build. Do you see the cloud cover? You can think of that cloud cover as moisture as well. So that's the humidity that we're getting coming from the south out of the Gulf waters, and that's going to interact with that next round of energy and produce some of those spotty showers and isolated thunderstorms. As far as accumulation through Tuesday, it's all going to be west of the I-35 corridor as far as the rainfall potential. Temperatures are going to feel great, though. We're not going to have that cold front come through until next week. So temperature-wise, yeah, we're feeling great. 70s for everybody there on the map through the rest of the weekend and into early next week. Corpus Christi, it's going to be some nice beach weather, sunshine. Those walks on the beach in the morning should be fantastic. Lows in the 60s. And then one more stop here out into the western side of Texas and southern New Mexico. Talking about some of that chilly air, but look at our Saturday forecast. Fort Stockton, 78. Midland, we'll go about 76 there. Del Rio, near 80 degrees. But here comes that moisture. You see a little bit of it right there Saturday afternoon. Van Horn, El Paso, up into Carlsbad, into southern New Mexico. And then you see those showers trying to build again as we get into Sunday morning, kind of coming right up there through the Big Bend of Texas. Now, don't go anywhere. We're going to be back in just a few minutes. We want to show you some of the images coming out of the National Storm Chaser Summit. That's in Westminster, Colorado. Weather Nation, a proud sponsor.
When you look at your grocery bill, is it so high it knocks you off your feet? It's time to stand up and save with InstaSeal by Bell & Howell, the world's first vertical vacuum sealing system designed to save you money. Unlike ordinary storage bags that trap air in, spoiling your food, InstaSeal removes the air completely, extending freshness up to 6 times longer. Now that's saving. Look, flat sealers create a big mess, but InstaSeal is upright, mess-free, and easy. The secret is Smart Seal technology. With just one touch, it auto-feeds the bag to seal, pauses to vacuum out the air, then continues to perfectly seal. Plus, InstaSeal has a motor powerful enough to crush cans, but smart enough to save crackers from turning to dust. Forget big, bulky sealers you have to put away. InstaSeal's compact design stays to help you seal and save every day. Got a great deal on chicken, meat, or fish? InstaSeal protects it from freezer burn. Now buy groceries in bulk. Make meals ahead of time. InstaSeal and save. It even works with all universal storage system bags. Buy on sale meats. InstaSeal and save. When you add it all up, InstaSeal will help you seal and save hundreds on your family's grocery bill. Call or go online now and get the complete InstaSeal system that keeps food fresh 6 times longer with enough storage bags to fill your entire fridge for the special TV discount price of just $99.99. It comes with a 90-day money-back guarantee. Plus, we'll ship your entire order free. You get it all, an incredible value for one low price. Order now.
To order, call 1-800-308-1932 or go to buyinstaseal.com. So call 1-800-308-1932 or order online at buyinstaseal.com.
What should we do?
I'm going to cashnetusa.com. I can apply in minutes, and if approved, we can have the money as soon as the same business day.
Go to cashnetusa.com to apply for the money you need.
I'm meteorologist Carissa Kloss, and we are here at the 2026 National Storm Chaser Summit, and I found my favorite chaser dude, don't tell anybody else, Josh Morgerman. And Josh, you're excited to present here because this is a big deal for the meteorological and chaser community.
Yeah, this is the creme de la creme of or storm chaser conferences, and I'm talking about one of the most crazy topics, Hurricane Melissa, for two reasons. One, meteorologically, it was insane, smashed a bunch of records, but two, it was one of the toughest chases I've ever gone on. And sort of I view chasing as sort of like a sport, a professional sport, and there's like a good way to do it. There are good techniques to apply. I want to share those with the community. This is how I got through it, and you can apply those techniques too.
Because when you apply those techniques, then we can get the information and the forecast to people at home faster and increase warning and lead time and information. Is that part of why you speak at public events like this?
Absolutely. The storm chasing community plays a very important role in weather warnings and stuff. One, just spotting threats as they're happening in real time. There's no one better than the storm chasers on the ground. And two, collecting data that agencies like the National Hurricane Center then use to understand what happens. So it all goes into that sort of scientific mix, which funnels into better forecasts.
And better ways that we can serve you at home. And this is a sold out event. So if you want to join along, you can watch some of these presentations, including Josh's live on Rumble and our YouTube page. Just follow us at WeatherNation.
All right, thanks, Krista, for that. Let's get you out to Oceanside, Oregon, where this Friday is fantastic here across the Northwest. But changes are coming, and of course, one of the big national stories, at least out west, has been super warm, and we haven't really seen much snow as of lately. Both of those things are going to change a little bit as we go into the next couple of days. We have Atmosphere River headed our way. Basically, the Pineapple Express, we're tapping into some deep tropical moisture from the Pacific, from Hawaii, all the way up here into areas of California, Oregon, and Washington as we go into the upcoming weekend. And as we look ahead to our Sunday, we will see chances for heavy precipitation, mostly across the coast in the form of heavy rain. And then for the higher terrains of northern Washington, also northern Idaho, we're looking at some chances of heavy rain and some chances of heavy snow. There's a forecast for Saturday morning. Rain will be in the forecast across Eugene, Portland, Seattle, maybe some heavier rain just towards the east of Seattle across the I-90 corridor. And we're going to see waves of rain and snow off and on over the next couple of days. So this moisture is going to try to get over the Rockies into northwestern Montana. We had another surge of moisture coming in for your Sunday across Oregon, over towards Idaho, and eventually pushing more towards the east into Montana. And Boise, you may get in on some of this rain as we go into Sunday evening. No snow for you all because temperatures are just simply too warm. More snow up into areas north of Missoula. More chances of rain and snow back towards the west across the I-5 corridor. This cold front will continue to move more towards the east. May see some rain across Salt Lake City. More snow building in towards the east of there. And also notice further south, we're going to talk a little bit more about this coming up right now, but across the I-80 corridor, we could be seeing chances of rain and snow anywhere between Reno and Salt Lake City. And our forecast shows when it comes to rain, especially across central and southwestern Oregon, we could see a couple of inches of rain. Lighter amounts of rain should go more towards the east. But here's the big story, though. Lots of snow. We need snow because the levels are pretty low for this time of the year, record low for a lot of us here across the West. This is great news for the snowpack and also great news for the ski resorts too. Some of us may be looking at maybe over a foot of snow over the next few days. Let's go to the Southwest now and talk a little more about these same systems here, dropping further to the south for the first part of next week.
Yeah, we want to see what the southern side is going to look like. Lake Tahoe, Nevada, right there from earlier, got some cloud cover. That's a sign of the moisture that we're starting to get, and there's going to be more of it on the way. So let's take a look at this pattern. As far as the upper level pattern, we got the jet stream right there. You can see the big trough continuing to dig deep, but there is a wave that separates itself out there, and it starts to move up into the northern Rockies and the Intermountain West, and that's also going to be a focus for some of the active weather. Now, Saturday morning, you see a stream of moisture coming up out of Mexico into eastern Arizona, western New Mexico, so there could be some showers. It looks like might even see some thunderstorm activity, at least based on what our forecast is showing a little bit of intensity with some of this precipitation. Then we look down south into Arizona on Sunday morning, right around the Tucson area. You could see some showers coming up from Mexico. That's all all associated with that upper level low as it's going through the northern part of the country of Mexico and sending all that moisture. And you can see it's starting to push up into Texas as we get towards that Tuesday time frame. Then we get the atmospheric river setting up. As we get into Tuesday, you can see that moisture right into San Francisco, the Bay Area, and then that snow from Nevada through northern Utah and out into the Rockies of Colorado. So there's the latest forecast for the rainfall. You see those numbers. They're not huge, but it is much needed rain. We are a little bit on the dry side overall, and we desperately need that snow, especially for the Rockies of Colorado. We are just so below normal, and I know also into the higher terrain in Utah, we are below that normal amount that we get through this time of the year. So temperature-wise, looking ahead to next week, slight cooling trend into, say, San Diego and Los Angeles, but those temperatures just cooling down closer to normal, closer to those seasonable averages. So we're just dealing with a lot of those well above normal temperatures. Sometimes you just get so far above normal. A cool down is this temperature's getting right back down to average. Now, we also want to talk about those warm temperatures out into states like Montana. There's a look at Thursday of some of those record highs that took place, Jesse.
Yeah, we smashed records here across areas like Sheridan, Montana, and to Miles City. We had temperatures in the 60s and 70s. And a lot of these temperatures for this time of the year across Montana should be in the 30s and 40s. And we are well beyond that on Thursday. And it looks like we could be getting near some of those same numbers as we head into your Friday afternoon. We're going to get official numbers coming out on that later on throughout the evening. We even had records in the Salinas, California, and also into Portland, Oregon, where Portland, you could be maybe setting more records later on this afternoon too. If you're heading out to Scottsdale for the Waste Management Phoenix Open, it's going to be a nice afternoon for golf there in Arizona. Lots of sunshine, warm air, going to see those temperatures in the 80s. And again, we're going to talk a bit more about more chances of snow and that heat starting to break down a little bit. We'll break that forecast down coming up in 3 minutes in your West Regional Forecast.
Hey there, everybody, gotta get something off my chest real quick. Recently, it seems like I've been talking, but no one's listening. Been thinking about getting a therapist, a mind wrangler, feeling hurt, or someone really listens to what I have to say.
Buddy, I hear ya. And look here on ZocDoc, 15, 10, 20 therapists, take insurance. Got a guy straight to the point, no small talk.
No, I see a 4-star, 4, 5, 4. How about a 5, 5, 5?
There you go, 5 stars. Got a guy, don't just listen, make you really feel like you're being heard.
Sold.
You've got options.
Love you, buddy.
Download the ZocDoc app today.
This is my mother, Tracy Banks. She just gushes about me to everybody.
I want everybody to know what an awesome guy you are.
This is what I want to keep. I want to be able to spend time with my mom, which is why it's time to start thinking about senior care, and I don't want the process to get in the way.
I had a really bad fall, and it was traumatic, but he showed right up. He just was so wonderful.
That's why I'm so happy we found a place for Mom. They provide personalized support that makes it easier to search for senior care options in our area. It's got to be right for my mom.
I know he's going to take care of me. Did I tell you he's a genius? And in 8th grade, oh my gosh.
All right, so that's 1 pair of prescription glasses. Yep. Plus anti-reflective lens coating.
Oh.
Award-winning customer service.
That's me.
That's also me.
I see.
And free frame adjustments for life.
And that's included in the...
$95.
Oh.
Welcome to Warby Parker.
When you're at the starting line for your next event, 4imprint has the right promotional gear, bottles, bags, hats, and tees, delivered on time to energize your customers and your team. Race now to 4imprint.com.
4imprint, for certain.
What will you do when the power goes out? Power outages can be unpredictable and inconvenient, but with a Generac home standby generator, your life goes on uninterrupted because you'll have power when you need it the most.
The #1 thing to prepare for is extended power outages. Don't make it so hard on yourself. Have a Generac home standby generator.
And special financing and low monthly payment options are available. Call or go online now to request your free quote. Power your life with Generac.
I need products that work just as hard as I do. That's why I choose Pretty Litter, the health monitoring cat litter with advanced odor control. Each lightweight bag lasts up to a month. I suggest you make the switch and see why Pretty Litter is on my list of favorite things.
his right over there. As a young teenager, I was so excited when Gary decided to give me his personal cell phone number. So, of course, when I see this vehicle who had a lot of great stickers on it, I texted Gary and I said, Gary, whose car is that? I want those stickers. And he said his name is John Moon. I'll get you two connected. And he did. And anyway, all right. So I got John's number, and yes, I got the stickers. Throughout my high school years, I had the amazing privilege to intern under Gary. I got to work at the TV station multiple times a week, sometimes multiple times a week, and learned how to build those graphics for the newscast and learned so much about forecasting. I even got the chance to be on air and help with wall-to-wall severe weather coverage multiple times, which was pretty cool for a teenager in high school. And as the years went on, John and I became true best friends. We both had the same passion for weather and storm chasing, and for years we were inseparable and created a storm chasing team together. We both had Gary by our side, teaching and mentoring us along the way. After high school, Gary and the TV station blessed us with another amazing opportunity to become the on-air storm chasers for the station. For years, we were tasked with keeping Kansas City informed of what was happening during severe weather. We also got to do many public events with the weather team, and our popularity went up. Fast forward 18 years, I've had so much to be thankful for. John and I have been just extended to our 8th year contract with KSN News 3 and Next Star Media down in Wichita with our great friend, Chief Meteorologist Lisa Teachman. We've learned so much about weather and storm chasing. We've chased tornadoes all over the country together and made lifelong memories. We tell the same stories every time we're together. It's just as funny as the time that it happened and the 100 other times that we've told the same story. But this all happened because of one man. So, Gary, I want to thank you for everything that you taught me, you taught us, for being our mentor, our friend, for cheering us on, giving us tough love when we needed it most, for every opportunity that you gave us, even when it meant putting your own neck on the line. But most of all, thank you for my best friend, my brother. To all of you teenagers and young adults in the room today, if you have somebody out there that you admire and respect, reach out to them. Ask them to be your mentor. The worst thing that somebody will ever tell you is no. But then ask again and again, just in a different way. Because you never really know how it may change your life. Up here with me also is Gerard Jabali, and he is a meteorologist who also worked under Gary at KSHB 41. And with his expert guidance, encouragement, unwavering positivity, and friendship, led him on to be the chief meteorologist for News Nation and now Fox 45 in Baltimore. The three of us here are all the sons that Gary never knew that he had, and now what we so lovingly call him our godfather. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is my absolute honor to introduce you, the founder of Weather 2020, former KSHB 41 chief meteorologist, and my dear friend, Gary Leisac.
I didn't think I was going to cry. My goodness. Thank you, Jacob and John and Gerard. And my gosh, that was quite an introduction. Great to see everybody here today. I'm going to share a new technology with you. Some of you probably have heard about. A few of you have been following it for about 3 or 4 years. A few of you maybe even a couple of decades. But I want to get started here with a little video. So let's get this video started. So what I want to do is everyone in here say, Gary. Gary. No, not yet. Gary, when are we going to have tornadoes this year? Okay, wait just a second. Okay, ready? 3, 2, 1. Gary, when are we going to have tornadoes this year? Okay, let's do that again. All together. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Gary, when are we going to have tornadoes this year? Okay, that's pretty good. I'm going to let you know right now. Okay. So, anyway, I guess we can put the presentation up, guys, if you want to. Let's get rolling. What I'm going to share with you right now is the weather pattern that sets up every fall and then repeats over and over again. So, guys, do you have the presentation ready? Or do I have to push a button? Aha. A second. Sponsored by Canon. We're waiting. I've got a whole presentation. 2 minutes? Okay, I got 2 minutes to ad lib, so I got to tell you a story. All right. So, very interesting. We just heard from Tony and the devastation of El Reno, the horrible tornado. That day, May 31st, 2013. 11 days before that was the last EF5 tornado that ever occurred in the last 12 years or so. 2013, the Moore, Oklahoma tornado was May 20th, 2013. So what you may not know is that about 9 months earlier, October the 28th, was Superstorm Sandy. The weather pattern that produced Superstorm Sandy in late October is directly related to the weather setup, the synoptic scale. Kids, that's big, broad, 2,000-foot scale, basically, 2,000-mile scale. The Superstorm Sandy setup is directly related to the El Reno tornado. So 9 months, 8 months, 10 months before, we already have the information, the data available to predict when these disasters may occur. If you go back to October 28th, 29th, the Superstorm Sandy, there was a tornado outbreak in the plains. 11 days before that, there was a tornado outbreak in the plains on October the 17th, 2012. That pattern repeated. It was a 53.5 day cycle that year. 53.5 times 4 is 214. And 214 days after Superstorm Sandy was May 31st. So what I'm going to share with you when my presentation comes up here within a few minutes is that possibility, that ability to predict the weather that far in advance. And it's not just tornadoes, it's hurricanes, it's snowstorms. What has happened here in Colorado? Have you noticed the mountains? There's hardly any snow on them. If you look to the southwest, by the way, it's 67 degrees outside right now, okay? We're all in here, but it's an amazing day. And tomorrow's going to be 67, so you can get outside again tomorrow. But if you look down to the southwest, you will see Mount Blue Sky. It's off to the southwest, used to be called Mount Evans. Mount Blue Sky almost has no snow on it. In Golden, Colorado, where I live now, we've had 17 inches of snow this winter. The average is 38 inches of snow by now, 40 inches. The ski resorts are losing millions of dollars. Salt Lake City, Utah. How much snow has fallen in Salt Lake City this season? Does anybody know? 0.1 inches, right. 0.1 inches of snow in Salt Lake City. And by now, what do they average? 35 inches of snow. So what is going on? The pattern that's set up last October and November is cycling, and it's producing this over and over again. Some people will say it's going to suddenly change. No, it is not. It's not going to suddenly change. So the pattern behind the storms, the atmosphere has a memory. I'm going to go over my history for a few minutes. But first of all, how many tornadoes have we had across the United States since October? So you have October, November, December, January, into the first 6 days of February. How many tornadoes has there been? Does anybody have any idea? I'll answer for you, because I told you. 83. I told him earlier this morning. 83 tornadoes since October. Last year, October, November, December, January to February 6th, there were 260. Before you get concerned, oh no, we're not going to have a great chase season. A couple of years ago, we had a very light fall for severe weather, and it ended up being very active. So just know there's potential for that. All right. What you're looking at here, that's me. Ever since I was 5 years old, all I ever wanted to do is tell people about the weather. That's me maybe when I was 7 or 8 years old. I was fascinated by weather ever since age 5. And I got inspired. Kids, you're getting inspired today, I'm sure, by some things. I got inspired by this TV meteorologist. His name was Dr. George Fishbeck. He would go on the air in the 1978 year, the Star Wars calendar here. In 1978-79, it was a huge winter in Los Angeles, where I grew up in Southern California. I didn't know that the weather was boring there. I thought it was very exciting. Well, this year it absolutely was. All right. So, but he would show the upper level winds, the jet stream, the 500 millibar flow, and explain how these storm systems were coming in to Southern California. So I got fascinated, and in my Star Wars calendar, this is a pretty big screen here, isn't it? It's amazing. On January 9th, 1978, I wrote, "A very large storm is dropping rain, very heavy, consistently raining, 2 to 5 inches of rain, or 2.5 inches of rain possible." So that's on the 9th, all month long. And 10 inches of rain fell that month. Kids, I recommend getting a calendar and doing what I did and start keeping weather entries. I did this for so many years. So I even wrote my first long-range forecast. January, forecast, more rain than usual. I got it right. It's pretty amazing. So that's 1978. Now let's fast forward. I went to the University of Oklahoma, got my BS degree in meteorology. And then something amazing happened. I got to meet this man, Gary England, an icon, a pioneer in radar, in TV, in meteorology. I became his intern. And it was 1985, 86. I was his intern, and something amazing happened on January 28th, 1986. Well, a couple big things happened that day. The Space Shuttle Challenger disaster. 7 astronauts were killed. That morning, I was an intern. I was not working on TV yet, and I was just watching the TV. But that morning, before the disaster, Paul Bouchereau, a morning meteorologist, he was on thin ice at the TV station. He was basically, they were trying to find a reason to get him fired, believe it or not. And so that morning, he made a big mistake. He went in. We used to, nowadays you see on TV, You just see us at 7:25, 8:25 cut-ins during the Today Show or Good Morning America or CBS This Morning. You'll see us come on live, right? Well, back then you just saw a picture of the forecast, 75 degrees, and we would record it. So he pops into the recording and Paul Bouchereau goes, "Good morning. I'm meteorologist Paul Bouchereau. This is a great morning across Oklahoma this morning. It's up. Boom. He lands the F-bomb, okay? And the audio guy says, "Hurry up, Paul, you're on in 30 seconds. So he thought he erased it. We had this bulk eraser. He thought he erased it. And he put it in. He thought he recorded it, races it to the audio guy. The national guy says, "Here's what's happening in your neck of the woods," or whatever. And then it comes on. "Good morning. This is meteorologist Paul Bouchereau. It's up. Oh, boom." He gets fired that morning. I am working, I'm just watching the TV on the Space Shuttle Challenger disaster, and Gary England calls me. He calls me, he used to call me Leisac, okay? Not Leisac. For 40 years he called me Leisac. But he calls me and goes, "Leisac, did you hear what happened today?" I said, "No." I said, "Yeah, this is horrible." He goes, "Paul said on the air, and you got an interview at 2. So the next thing you know, I came in with my little tie I had on. I'm 23 years old, and Gary England's on the couch. I'm sitting here. The news director's right there. It's 1986, so he's smoking a pipe in his office. He's like, "Did you hear what happened today?" And I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "You start tomorrow, no pay." I looked up at Gary England. He's on the couch, and he just goes like this. And I said, this is when I started learning negotiating skills real early. I never had an agent. I've always negotiated my own contracts. And I said to the news director, I said, "Can't you pay me the lowest pay scale you have here?" And he says, "No, take it or leave it. I need to know right now." I looked over at Gary England, and he just shrugged his shoulders again. I said, "Okay, I'll take it." And the next morning, I got introduced as the new meteorologist on KWTV in Oklahoma City. So an amazing day, an amazing time, and that's how I got my career started. And it's very interesting. This is now AI generated, so that's a weird looking, that is my hair, okay? But it's interesting. In my first few months on the air, Gary England taught me radar. And the radar of the day, some of you might remember this, we had folding. So Doppler radar early on at 29 miles per hour, it would fold. All right. So then 30 miles per hour would be like a little fold with 1 mile per hour extra. But then if it folded twice, that's 58 miles per hour. If it folded again, it would be 87 miles per hour. And I'd already been learning about Gary England's style. Very aggressive, very competitive. We had to be first. When he would say priority 1, the station knew we were on the air as fast as possible within 1 minute sometimes. And so I was by myself in the morning, right after I started, maybe March, April, and maybe it was even May, but we had a line of thunderstorms coming in from the southwest. It was in the morning. I was the morning meteorologist, and I was analyzing the radar, and I saw the fold once, the fold twice, the fold 3 times. I'm like, shoot, as Gary England taught me, that's like 87 miles per hour, 90 miles per hour. And so I'm analyzing, looking at the radar, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, what could that be? Is that right? Then a phone call. I answer the phone. I said, "Weather, you see a tornado in the village in Oklahoma City?" "Okay, thank you very much." So I put the phone down, and Gary England taught me, you get 2 calls that are different from the same location telling you there's a tornado, then you can believe it. Otherwise, 1, maybe not. So then I'm just sitting there thinking, then right then, second call, I see a tornado. So I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, thank you very much. I hang up the phone, I go, priority one, because I never did. I just heard Gary England do it. And boom, I was on the air within a minute doing my first tornado warning by myself. And, it was probably already, the tornado, I think, had already touched down caused damage, and it was already gone by that point. So Gary England, instrumental in getting my career started. A year later, 2 years later, I discovered something by experiencing the weather, observing the weather. Up on the top left, that's me. In 1987, in November, there was about a 1 to 2 inch snowstorm. Then, in the picture middle left, I have all my descriptions meteorologically what was going on. That's a snowstorm. A snowstorm that produced about 1 foot of snow. Remember, this is Oklahoma City that averages 8 inches of snow winter. A 1 foot snowstorm. That barbecue grill has about 1 foot on it. Bottom left, my CRX in front of my apartment, major ice storm. Same winter. Top right, that's the same barbecue grill. The same barbecue grill. But this time there was wind with the storm, and so it drifted, and it's still about a 1 foot snowstorm once again. Then I went to Lake Tahoe with my dad, and it's got more snow. I just love snow. And then bottom right, March, more snow in Oklahoma City. Why this winter? Why would there be 2 1-foot snowstorms, all these other major winter storms in a place that doesn't usually get that much? I was obsessed with these 500 millibar maps. 500 millibars happens to be halfway through the atmosphere in weight. The top of the atmosphere has no weight, kids, okay? Near the surface, the average pressure is 1,013.25 millibars, or 29.92 inches of mercury. Okay, that's the average pressure. So 500 millibars just happens to be right down the middle of the atmosphere. And I noticed that the storm in November and the storm in January, believe it or not, the 1 foot blizzard storm and that other storm, the pattern looked almost identical. And that's when I started developing my theory that maybe something bigger was going on. So we fast forward 40 years, and you can see the atmospheric jigsaw. Everyone else in this room likely uses some of these pieces. A few of you that are really big into forecasting, you got ENSO, which is El Nino, and La Nina. La Nina is the cooling of the tropical Pacific Ocean. El Nino is the warming of the tropical Pacific Ocean, and likely a big driver to maybe even this winter. Okay, there's been a weak La Nina that's now beginning to warm up. The MJO, the Madden-Julian oscillation, a lot of people know about that because there's 200 papers written. There's only 1 paper written on what I've discovered so far. But there will be 200 someday. Dr. Madden lives just 20 minutes from here. He's 87 years old, and he's working with me right now to prove the LRC quantifiably through equations. And it's fascinating. But the LRC is the centerpiece of the big atmospheric puzzle. It's the science of where and when. When and what is going to happen. Here's one of the oscillations, though. You see right here, the AO just dipped very low. Why did the East Coast just get blasted by these winter storms? Likely a result of the AO dipping deep negative. But the LRC tells us when it's going to return. And if you look right here on the bottom right, the AO dipped negative about 10 to 11 weeks ago in November. In November, it was just a strong cold front. Just recently, it was a 2-week Arctic blast that has not let up on the East Coast. So the AO influence this year has been significant. But the LRC is a centerpiece. When you have the AO dipping, Arctic air will blast south, storm systems get generated stronger, and that's what we just experienced. And so right now it's surging back up towards neutral at this moment. But the AO is just a factor. So let's look at last year's weather pattern. I want to analyze last year's weather pattern for you because then I'm going to show you something fascinating. Here is the 500 millibar flow, 18,000 feet up. All right. This is the 500 millibar flow, valid on October 11th. Every year, we can talk about it if you have some questions later. Why does it set up in the first week or two of October every year? But this is the beginning of last year's weather pattern, not this year's, but in 24-25 season. This upper level low is some energy that was forming off the West Coast on October 11th. Last year just happened to be about a 6-week cycle, 41 to 42 days. So watch. There it is again, a system off the West Coast on November 22nd, 42 days later. 42 days later, January 3rd. There it is again. All right. And this time, when this energy came in and combined with the pattern that was developing overall, Kansas City had a blizzard.
I got 20s up north, Nashville 28, 29 in Chattanooga, 32 in Atlanta. And I mentioned the wind alerts. Those are still out there, including some high wind warnings for western North Carolina. So high profile vehicles have to use some caution on those roadways. Could topple over with crosswinds like this. But notice how we stay quiet. It's not a whole lot of active weather. So now that cold fronts come through, we'll get that high pressure influence. It's not until Tuesday and into Wednesday we start to track some of that moisture. You can kind of see it filling in a bit more into northern Mississippi around Tupelo, and that's the rain and the moisture that'll start to spread through the rest of the region. Our forecast for Saturday, staying cool in Nashville, just 38 for that high for the start of the weekend, 42 in Charlotte, and 39 for the viewers there in Wilmington. Now don't go anywhere, we'll be back. More Weather Nations on the way, including more updates from the Chaser Summit out of Westminster, Colorado.
Water, nature's ultimate cleaner. We drink it, we bathe in it. Think water, think steam, think clean. Now harness the power of water with the H2O X5 5-in-1 steam cleaning system.
I'm so impressed with the X5.
It's an all-in-one product. I can use it throughout my entire house.
It's cleaning, it's sanitizing, there's no chemicals in it. It's just steam.
This is unbelievable. There is no more odor.
5 minutes, I'm done. Look at that, it's amazing.
If you're ready to step into an effective, economical, and eco-safe world of cleaning, look no further than the H2O X5. Using just the power of superheated water, the X5 Super Hot Steam cleans and kills up to 99% of germs, viruses, and bacteria. You could spend over $500 to purchase the products that the X5 5-in-1 Miracle replaces. But through this special TV offer, you won't spend $400, $300, or even $200. Order your H2O X5 steam cleaning system, a $500 value, for just 4 easy payments of $43. You'll get the X5 steam mop with microfiber pad, the carpet glider, the handheld scrubber, the window glass and mirror attachment, and the garment and upholstery bonnet. It's a complete 10-piece system, all this for just 4 easy payments of $43. But it gets even better. Order now and we'll upgrade your X5 package. We'll add a 6th mode with a dusting and polishing wand. Valued at over $30, this extra bonus attachment makes your H2O X5 the H2O X6. That means your 10-piece system becomes a 12-piece system at no extra cost to you. If after 30 days you're not absolutely delighted, send it back for a full refund of the purchase price. Don't wait. Now's your chance to own the X5 for just 4 easy payments, and we'll make the first payment for you. You get the X5 incredible 5-in-1 lightweight, powerful 12-piece steam cleaning system, a $500 value, all for just 3 easy payments of $43. This offer can't last forever, so call or click right now.
We need some help.
So we can identify the parts of the pattern that are going to produce tornadoes and predict when they're going to return at an accuracy clip in the last 5 years that is now near 90%. All right? It's not just tornadoes. Remember last year, 41, 42 cycle. It was cycling between 38 and 44 days last year. This year is much longer cycle. Hurricane Erin became a Category 5 hurricane on August the 16th. 42 days later, Hurricane Humberto became a Category 5 hurricane exactly 42 days later. Not in the exact same spot, but it is not a coincidence. Not only that, there have been 44 Category 5 hurricanes in history recorded. 44 of them. Only 4 of those 44 hurricanes never made landfall. Aaron was one of them. It formed in the Atlantic, crossed and curved off the East Coast, thank goodness, because it was so strong, went west of Bermuda, and it never made landfall as a named storm. Humberto never made landfall. It's 4 of 44, and these are 2 of those 4. Just like Oklahoma City's 2 one-foot snowstorms, we have the hurricanes predictable and with results like that. So let's apply it to this year. As I said, I'm working with Dr. Madden on proving out the LRC. What you're looking at here is the heartbeat of the weather pattern. We have found the heartbeat of the weather pattern, the DNA of the atmosphere, the blueprint of what's going to happen the rest of this year. All right? So what you're looking at here at San Francisco, the red line is a measure of that 500 millibar flow. Okay, like the AO index, we have a LRC index that we call it. And this is a measure of that river of air above us. So you can see the flow across. When there's a dip, that's a storm system. And right here, on October 14th, California had a major storm. But it's supposed to be a weak La Nina. So all these forecasts that came out, and I saw a lot of them, dry in California. These forecasts are coming out in late October, November. Dry in California this winter. No! Already we know that's wrong. And then what happens? This year is a 10 to 11 week cycle. And Christmas week, 5 to 10 more inches of rain in California. But that's just San Francisco. Let's go to Paris, France. The same thing. Paris, France. Cycle 1 in the red. Cycle 2 in the white. 2 big storms. I wasn't paying attention to Europe. All right? But this is what happened. They had a big storm. They called it Major Storm Benjamin. They had tornadoes, 133 mile per hour winds, major power outages. And then they called it Major Storm Goretti. It just happens to be about 70 to 75 days later. I have someone in Switzerland thinking about working with us right now. They've got the date down for when this is going to return in March. All right? It's going to. San Francisco, California. Look at California getting that storm with 5 to 10 inches of rain, October the 14th. Then it returned, and this was predicted. I didn't know what the cycle length was. I just knew in about the second half of December, they were going to get blasted again. They had 5 to 10 inches of rain and 6 more feet of snow in Lake Tahoe. So we made a prediction, and it's been out there. I publicized it. First 10 days of March, maybe the very last part of February, another major storm similar to these 2. It's not 100% certain it's going to happen, but probably in that 80 to 90% certainty. But that's what we are able to do. So, as I get to this year's forecast for you, your storm chasers, by the way, I was never a very good storm chaser because I just loved weather so much. I didn't like going out into western Oklahoma and seeing a tornado. Okay, I grew up in Los Angeles. Maybe that's why I didn't really care. When I was a bad storm chaser. I even went storm chasing with Howie Bluestein once, but I couldn't wait to get back. Oh my gosh, the thunderstorms are heading towards Norman. I've got to get back. I got to see this thunderstorm. So I would literally be with storm chasers, and I was driving, and they couldn't stand it because I made us go back to Norman when we were about to see a tornado. So I wasn't very good, but I am very good at predicting when they're going to happen. So let's look at this weather pattern, October 27th. It's important because it produced not much. You can look at the bottom left there. This is the problem. This season has not produced many tornadoes. As I told you, 83 tornadoes so far this season. But that's a small little outbreak. And then this is the pattern that was setting up to create it. There was an upper level low across southeast Missouri, strong jet stream energy coming in to the Pacific Northwest. Fast forward 10 to 11 weeks later, here it comes again. Okay, and when that energy swings out, it produced that tornado outbreak. And then on January 8th, I was talking to Jeff Protowski the other day. He says, "Hey, Gary, there was a storm on January 8th." I'm like, "I know. There it is." This part of the pattern is going to return. So what we do at Weather 2020, we predict when that's going to happen. The Storm Prediction Center will show, level 1, level 2, 3, 4, 5 risk, right? You'll have a marginal risk, slight, enhanced, moderate, or high risk, right? So what we do is I put together something just like that. Here is the forecast for March 16th to March 25th. I know it's a 10-day window. It's a 10 to 11 week forecast, but there's multiple waves that may produce severe weather in this segment of the pattern that's going to cycle back through. So Wichita, I have right now in a level 1 or 2. And then level 2 or 3 risk will be around that. And then in the middle, maybe a moderate risk. It's March, so we'll see how it sets up. Could be dependent on the colder air or not, but that's a 45-day forecast. As I said, how accurate are these? About 90% in the last 5 years. Now, this pattern is going to return. So when it returns and cycles back through, here is a day 1 and 2 outlook. Right now, okay? Based on meteorology, not based on climatology. In climatology, oh boy, that's hard. You're going to predict a severe weather outbreak at the end of May in southeast Kansas and Missouri and Oklahoma. Yes, but I'm telling you when that's going to happen. Now, that's day 1 and 2, and then it'll be day 2, 3, or 4 as it shifts off to the south and east. If anything, maybe I'm too far south on this. It's late May, June. I might want to lift that a little farther north. But this is just one part of the pattern. So again, just so you see this again, there it is, the part of the pattern that was analyzed meteorologically, looking at the 500 millibar level, what happened at the surface, and the results from the Storm Prediction Center. So based on that, there's March 16th to 25th, May 25th to June 5th, and the day 2, 3, and 4. So as weak as this season has been so far, just know the day is coming. You're going to be out there in the field. You're going to see severe weather, and it's going to happen. But my goodness, so far this season, it's been fairly quiet. So I do have, here's my email. If you want to email me, if you're interested, Gary@weather2020.com. We put these severe weather outlooks out. I have a product that's out there as well, this one. But the best one, I think, if you just follow along at weather2020.substack.com, and we've got thousands of people now following, and we share this information with you and try to explain it. I try to explain it. I do a video every week, sometimes twice a week. So with that, that's my presentation. How about that? It's almost dinner time. This is the last presentation of the evening. So we have dinner, and I got my dogs here, Rainbow and Sunny. You've probably seen them. I don't know, but let me know do you have any questions? Any questions? We'll take a few minutes of questions.
All right, guys. I'm going to walk around with the mic, so raise your hand. We'll get these questions answered.
We got a few back here.
So.
All right, this thing working? Okay. How would the rapid expected transition to El Nino affect the patterns here? Or affect the cycle?
Very good question. How would the potential change right now from La Nina conditions to an El Nino or warming of the tropical Pacific Ocean affect this? So what's going to happen is, by the way, those CFS V2 models are not very good, okay? So the La Nina, this past week, we'll see what Monday comes in at, but it's still minus 0.8 right now. So minus 0.8. And so it's still La Nina conditions, but all indications are within the next 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, that there's going to be a transition to an El Nino condition. And next winter may be an El Nino. But what happens why do I put LRC as the centerpiece of the big atmospheric puzzle? Because the pattern isn't going to stop cycling regularly in the range it's in now. It can go through a La Nina to an El Nino shift. The pattern will still produce the storms on schedule, but there are influences that El Nino may start doing. In April and May, perhaps precipitation patterns will shift west a little bit. Maybe Colorado could get a benefit from a storm system. I just don't think it's going to be that big of an impact. But just know Enzo is just an influence.